Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Welcome to this championship edition of Coast to Coast College Football pregame show. I am your championship host, Uncle Shally. Call me Bill Shawcross. You just call me Champ, whatever you want to do today. Your choice. Joining me, as always, are two 2024 college football playoff hopeful hosts. My Buckeye brother from another mother, holding down the Midwest, still a little upset about what happened in the championship game, Mr. Cottrell Simpson. How are you doing, sir?
For the record, I'm not upset anymore. My focus is on this upcoming 2024-2025 season. Last season is behind us. Yeah, it's already behind us. We're focused on next year. And go Bucks. You
guys are both going to Belichick me. We're on to 2024. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, holding down the snowy West Coast this morning. A little different for the people out in Oregon. Not the rain. You're getting some of the fluffy, pretty white stuff. The other 2024 hopeful for the college football playoff. And I guess it's official, Cottrell? Big Ten.
Yeah, he doesn't want to claim it yet, but it's official. He's like, calendar year, all this other nonsense. But like football season's over, it's official.
Look, basketball still Pac-12, baseball still Pac-12 until everything's finished.
We're not talking basketball, baseball. We're talking football. This is college football tailgate. Like here, come on, Alex.
Yeah. I'm just saying, you're one of us. Isn't over yet. All right,
you're one of us now, buddy. I know you're fighting tooth and nail. I get it. I know. We play real football over here. I know you're trying to just stay on top over there, but
not at all.
No, he's still not on tilt at all. Not at all. But anyway, let's give an official Big Ten welcome to our West Coast host, Mr. Alex I. Black Elmore. How is everyone doing this morning?
It's good, man. Weather is luckily I'm off work today. The wife's off work today. Kids got no school till Tuesday, so no matter what the weather does, we are home. We are safe. We're warm. Good to go.
That's beautiful. You just play in the indoor snow day. That's all.
Exactly. And we didn't even plan these days off. It just happened to work out. So I'm thankful. I'm glad to be on the show with you guys. It's been a long, great season, 21 episodes, and we've been killing it every single time. So I'm glad to get this going. We got those awards going today, talk about some college football playoffs for next year, coaching carousel. We got so much to talk about today. Where are we going to start, Bill? And also, congratulations. I can no longer talk shit to you because you are the champ. So I can't
I'm the champ for the next 360 odd days. But yeah, we do. Listen, it is for it being one of our last two shows of the season before we take a little bit of break. We'll get into that later, but this show is going to be nuts, and it was kind of unexpected. We knew we were going to talk about the college football playoff championship game. Obviously, we were going to do our awards for the year, and with the playoff expanding for next year, we want to give everybody our first glimpse looks of how we think it's going to shake out next year. But then on top of that, then we just had some wild news, kind of fall our way in the middle of the week with Nick Saban retiring from Alabama, and them subsequently hiring Kalen DeBoer. So we're going to get into all that as well. So. This probably gonna be our best show, and I say that with lofty standards because we've had some good ones already this year. But for it to kind of be like a wrap up show of the year and kind of get us ready to go into the off season, this is going to be a full on jam packed 2 hours and some. So we're going to hop right in it. Bozak has come out this morning and shows some hot take violence, just hot take violence right off the get go. But listen. I don't know. Maybe Syracuse is on somebody's list. I don't know.
I will say Syracuse does have a very light schedule.
They do.
I will say
there's a lot of light schedules that we'll touch on when we do the CFP.
I don't have one of them, so I wouldn't know.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to the club.
Yeah, right. Well, neither one of you really have anything to brag about either this year. So,
true.
Especially the guy below me.
I mean, at least I made it to my Pac-12 championship game. At least
you did.
You only had 3 serious schools.
Wow. So did you.
Hey, we had the best record in bowl season, so
there's that.
Against ACC.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
I don't have a pipe near me.
It's a violent show today already. Bose is up. Bose, for people at home that don't know, Bose went to, I believe, Ithaca, I think.
Okay.
Bose, correct me if I'm wrong, which is very close to Syracuse. So,
yep.
I believe.
Is it the same college from Road Trip?
Yes.
Nice.
But Bose and his wife both went there, so they are probably they're obviously in upstate New York, having some fun this weekend. So, but let's jump right into it because, like I said, we got a ton to go through. So, we will start with the college football championship game. I will get my gloating in here and get it over and done with. Michigan 34, Washington 13. Game was obviously closer than the score indicated. You know, the 2 touchdowns kind of late that were kind of, kind of bang bang and really put the nail in the coffin for Washington. That being said, I think it was kind of a lot of what I expected, a lot of what I think other people expected. Gene picked Michigan to win by like 21, and he was almost spot on. But like I said, it was kind of I got to give him his credit. But the interception late and the kind of the 2-yard plunge to kind of really just seal the deal was not really indicative, I think, of how close the game was. I'm just going to go over a couple some of the things they accomplished, just my thoughts on it, and then obviously you guys can give a reaction to the game. 15-0, I think that is the big boy club. There's only a couple teams that have done it: Clemson, Georgia, and then obviously Alabama. In the 10 years, you only had 5 teams that won the national championship, which I think when you boil it down to is very interesting. You obviously had Ohio State and Michigan for the Big Ten, and then you had Clemson, the ACC, and then Georgia and Alabama won everything else. So 5 teams in 10 years. I think it's a very exclusive elite club to kind of win your way into. But 15-0, first time in Big Ten history, any team's gone 15-0. First time since 1903, any team has gone undefeated and not let an opponent score over 24 points. That I think is a really cool stat. Come across that since the game ended. 303 yards rushing in the championship game, broke that record by 7, which was previously held by Cottrell's Buckeyes. If you remember that game, the Ezekiel Elliott crazy game, you just couldn't be tackled.
Against who?
We don't talk about that game.
Against who? Who played that game?
I was trying to skip. I was trying just to get past that point, but I'll let Cottrell take his sniper shots there.
He did yesterday. He was sending group chats in yesterday talking crap. Like, dude cannot just hold in that Michigan's champion. He's got to relive in the past.
Alex.
He's angry. He's lashing out. He's lashing out at everybody. It's the way it is.
This is Alex's fault. He's taking shots at my quarterback now that he was a fan of 2.5 weeks ago. But now that he's a Buckeye, he's suddenly just this bum.
It was the wrong will, man. It was the wrong will.
It was the wrong will.
Hey, we got receipts for that. That's what I'm just saying.
I will only have Alex's back on this in that I've done the same thing like 3 times. Obviously, I know they're different people, and I know you have the better one, but I've gotten their names confused like 3 times.
Yes.
But just to go over a couple other things, never trailed at half one time of the year. The last team to do that was 2001 Miami. Everybody knows what that team was. That is the Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, that whole group. I think when it's all said and done, when I've been asked this a lot. It came up very late on Wire to Wire Wednesday. We factor where this team goes in, like historically. I'm not going to say it's the best team. I don't think it is. Obviously, they have an elite defense. I don't think they would have beat like the Burrow LSU team and maybe the first Georgia team. I think other than that, I think they're in that next group. I think it's an elite top 10 team. I mean, the numbers don't lie. I mean, they beat people a little bit differently than people I think want to see. But that still doesn't change the fact of just how dominant they were. They beat Washington. They beat a very good Ohio State team. I've been asked that, and I hate to say it, that might have been the best team we played this year. And it's they beat a very good Penn State team on the road. They beat Alabama. Everybody said we were scared of Alabama. We were going to beat Alabama. We beat Alabama. So, they, as for as much crap as we got for the front end of our schedule, I mean, our last 5 games were against top 10 opponents, and we beat every one of them. So, I think you have to give credit where it's credit's due. I think they're a great team. I thought this team all year was capable of this. I'm not one to, I'm more along the lines of Cottrell than I am, I would say Gene, where Gene likes to be bold, and that's what we love about Gene. Me and Cottrell sometimes keeps things close to the vest, and inwardly might be very confident, but we don't like to, kind of put it out there and maybe jigs things. I'm a lot like that, but this is, when I picked them earlier in the year to make the college football playoff, I thought they were capable of this. I knew what they had coming back. The defense ended up being better than I thought it was going to be. I thought they were going to be I thought they were going to be a top 10, top 15 defense to pair with that offense. They were going to be very good. I never, I won't say anything crazy. I never thought they were going to be, the number 1 ranked defense in the country pretty much the entire year and end that way. And again, I think you saw that. I think you see a team against, Washington that was prolific against everyone, including Oregon twice, who was a very good football team. To hold them to 13 points and, beat up Michael Penix Jr. and make him look very ordinary and, kind of really take the rhythm and all the, the high flying and, the precision out of that offense I think it's impressive. You just have to give them the credit. Very good team. There's a couple guys that are out, obviously out of eligibility. I talked about Mikey Sanders on Wednesday night, excuse me. That kid's going to be a legend. He just is. And I love his story. Like I said, I don't know if everybody knows, but he was a 3-star kid coming out of Massachusetts, kind of, got a scholarship, but it was, a mix of a scholarship and kind of a preferred walk-on spot. Played his first, year and a half there, and the coaches were like, listen, you're just not going to be a wide receiver, not on this team anyway. Like, you should really look at like your options about transferring out. And, and Mikey, said, no, like, I want to stay here. Like, they teach me how to play defense. Like, I want to stay in Michigan. I want to be a Wolverine. I committed to be here. I don't want to leave, and I'll do, just put me somewhere I can help the team win. And the dude just, it's funny, as much as the credit is like Blake and JJ and Edwards or, some of the other guys, even on defense, Will Johnson, as much as they get, this guy's the one that just makes the big plays all the time. He's a guy that's going to be in Michigan folklore forever. And a lot of those other guys had great games on Monday. Just proud of them. It's one of those teams where, you follow a lot of these kids. Me and Cottrell are very big on like recruiting and the kids coming in. And we've talked at length because we started wire to wire the year that like JJ and Travion Henderson and Donovan, all those guys came in. And we've been saying for 3 years how exciting this year was going to be between those two teams because of all the 5-star kids that both programs brought in. And we followed both of them. JJ was, originally committed to Ohio State. And then Travion and Donovan were the top 2 running backs in that class. And they just happened to, go, to the 2 schools that hate each other and play against each other. So to really, really just watch those kids and been following them for, over 5 years now and watch them progress and grow and get better. And then obviously, come back and win the championship. I don't think people realize how hard it is to get a bunch of guys like that, some of which could have went to the pros last year. And get them all in a room and come back and say like, hey, like we're legit going to, we're going to give this one more shot because we believe we're good enough to do it, and have them all commit, have everybody go back to their agents and their moms and whoever and say, you know what, I'm staying. Like, we're going to win a championship, and then go out and actually do it. And that's not even, factoring in all the other stuff that's going on with that program this year. Ohio State is, kind of, it looks, to the naked eye that they're kind of doing the same thing. A bunch of guys that probably could have went to the draft and, been drafted, decently, or, definitely got, high round draft picks and got paid to play football next year. They're all coming back. So that part of it to me is kind of special. Like I said, to see Zinter and all those guys and just really come back and commit to each other and play for each other all year and not worry about the other BS and then actually pull it off and beat a bunch of good football teams. It's special. This is obviously my favorite team ever. You know, like I said, you mentioned Mikey, Blake Corum. I don't know what to say about Blake Corum. You know, I got asked by a couple people Wednesday after we got off the show. They texted me, you know, is Blake Corum on the Michigan Mount Rushmore? And it was something I never like really considered. And then I was like, I think he is. And I don't know how you would keep. I don't know how you would keep him
or
off.
just running backs.
I was asked everybody. I mean, running backs, he definitely is, and it's kind of saying something considering the people that we've had a lot of really good running backs go through Michigan. So he holds all the records pretty much. I mean, it's hard to keep him off the running back one. The overall one is tough. I don't know. I think it's a different discussion for a different day. I don't want to turn this into a Michigan show, but
yes, you do.
No, I really don't.
I mean, you only got 2 slots available. You got 2 guys who are no doubt about it on there.
Well, Woodson's on there.
Howard's on there.
Desmond Howard, and then
so you only had 2 slots.
I do.
You put Brady on there? I mean, granted, he's an NFL legend, but was he a college legend? I didn't really follow Michigan back then.
He was not. I mean, he lost
split snaps.
Yeah, it's a whole debacle. It's a whole defensive thing. I mean, he's not though. As great as he was in the pros, Brady is not, and nobody will tell you any different. No real Michigan fan would put Brady on their Mount Rushmore.
I mean, Jim Harbaugh said it himself that J.J. McCarthy is probably the best quarterback Michigan's ever had. Like college quarterback, J.J. is probably it.
J.J.'s tough because there are guys like Chad Henne was a great college quarterback.
Chad Henne was
good. Braylon Edwards also has an argument.
Braylon, and then you got Anthony Carter back in the day. I mean, who was the first really, really, really good Michigan wide receiver. It's tough. I'll probably I think with time with anything, I don't like being a prison in the moment type thing. I think with reflection and everything else, I mean, I think it's you gain knowledge with time.
Future show idea.
Yep, future show idea.
Yeah, definitely for sure.
I think we could put a bracket together. Some of these schools, maybe like
all college Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, top 4 Mount Rushmore. Let's do it. Future show. Putting that in the back of the mind, right there.
There you go. But like I said, it's this group to me is special. I've always been a big JJ fan. Gene doesn't like him, but it was even funny, to hear differing opinions even from like Gene and Cottrell. I mean, it's Cottrell at least acknowledges what he is and how talented he is. But this group will always be special to me. This is a bucket list thing for me. Obviously, the 97 team was nice, but this, after being a fan for another 20 some years, to have it happen and be in the situation where we are now is special. This is in my opinion the best team they've ever had. So there's been a lot of talk about that already. I think this is the best Michigan team ever. I think it's the most complete team top to bottom. We get into the actual gameplay now. I'm done bragging over my boys. Actual game, I thought it was a good game. I thought the way it started, I thought I was going to be real relaxed and comfortable after the first 2 series, and then obviously Washington kind of called their way back into the game like I thought was going to happen because they, that's just how they've been all year. They are a super resilient bunch, and they are coached well, and they're a tough group of kids. So, what'd you guys think about the actual game?
I'm gonna let Cottrell think about his answer for a little bit and listen to me hype up Michigan because all year I've been kind of talking down on Michigan. I still don't think they played anybody all season as far as offensively that really showed off their defensive prowess. So when they came into the college football playoff, I chose Alabama in the first matchup and I chose Washington in the second matchup. I think me choosing those teams ultimately is the reason why Michigan won. My bad luck just took over. But Michigan's defense truly showed who they were those last 2 games. Like I said, before going to the Alabama game, I had mentioned that Michigan had only played 2 top 25 offenses. And going up against Alabama, Jalen Milroe, Washington, Michael Penix, Heisman Trophy finalist, I truly believe that Michigan has probably top 3 defenses in all of college football history as far as what this team was able to accomplish. Just like Bill said, this game was a lot closer than that 34-13 score. I mean, it was a 8-point game with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. An untimely interception by Michael Penix trying to make a play happen ultimately led to that touchdown, ultimately kind of sealed the deal. But if you look at the stats here, I mean, Washington did a really great job of getting Michigan off the field. Yes, they scored 34 points, but they held Michigan to 1 for 10 on third downs, which in a championship game, holding an opponent to 10% third down conversion, that's exactly what you want to do. I mean, that's exactly what I would want to do anyway. But here's the most telling stat. Washington, 2 turnovers. Michigan, 10 points off Washington's 2 turnovers. The other glaring stat is that Dylan Johnson, he went out in the first quarter with his ankle kind of banged up, which he's been suffering through the last half of the season. He only got to touch the ball 9 times. And I think that really kind of hurt their game plan, made them really one-dimensional. Only ran the ball 20 times, and Michigan was really able to kind of drop back and really just have free runs at Michael Penix. There's a really surprising thing that really impressed me with Michael Penix. I know that Michigan won. One thing that really impressed me, people are saying Michael Penix is not an NFL quarterback. What I saw is totally different. That dude's been sacked 7 times all year. If his offensive line kind of stepped up, I think this game would have been a little bit closer. But Michigan was constantly in the backfield. Do you know how many sacks Michael Penix took? Just 1. That shows kind of how he was able to kind of move out of the pocket, get rid of the ball, make smart decisions. And that shows me that he is going to be ready for the NFL next level. But ultimately, Michigan hands off to you. I mean, Edwards absolutely looked amazing. What was that? How many did he have? He had, 6 carries for 104 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, I don't know how Michigan fans can feel any better going into next season with him as your lead running back. Bill, congratulations. Like I said, it was a great game. I thought Washington was going to make a second half comeback. They did make it a game down 8 in the fourth quarter. I thought they were going to, when they were driving, he threw that pick near the end zone. But it was a great game. I would definitely watch it again. And again, congratulations, Bill. And I can't wait till next year.
So I have a very similar outlook on the game. And I'm just going to keep everything blunt. Michigan was great defensively for pretty much the entire game. And I think the plays where Michigan weren't great on defense, Washington had all the opportunity to strike, and they missed. Against great defenses, you have to capitalize on those opportunities when they come to you. You saw Michael Penix Jr. miss a couple big ones. Obviously, the 4th down call near midfield, it ultimately didn't hurt them because they stopped Michigan from scoring once they gave the ball back. But that's a big play. You know, even if it's not a touchdown there, it's at least 3 points. And I mean, I think as much room as Odunze had on it, you know, I think he gets into the end zone there, and that could potentially change the course of this game. So as great as Michigan was all game long defensively, Washington had their chances to strike, and they really just missed. I mean, even in the fourth quarter, you know, we talk about it being a 1-possession game. And, you know, I know a lot of people don't like that holding call that negated Odunze's big play in that fourth quarter. But again, you know, I'm kind of the same mindset where I do think it was a bad call per se, but at the same time, you can't put yourself in that situation. Like, don't even give the ref a chance to make that call there. So I think as great as Michigan played defensively, Washington also shot themselves in the foot offensively with the missed throws and things like that. And that's just not what you can do to win a championship against the team that plays as well defensively as Michigan does, you know. So obviously the last interception, I'm not going to put that too much on Michael just because it was a fourth down play. Like, all he could really do there was, you know, throw it up, give his guy a shot. So I'm not really too upset with that. I do think the score looks a lot crazier than what the actual game was, but got to give credit where credit is due. Michigan came in, they shut down a high-powered offense, and even with all those mistakes that Washington made, you know, they were still shut down for a large majority of that game. Alex, I agree with you. I do think Dylan Johnson being hurt, you know, affected some of their game planning, because even on that first run, obviously he was hurt coming into the game, and I know the run was pretty short. It was only like 4 or 5 yards, but he looked rather explosive up until he got tackled. Like, again, I know it's very, very small sample size. It's only 4 or 5 yards that you could see, but he looked confident running the ball until, of course, he got his ankle rolled up on. So, I mean, I just think it was a situation where Washington probably knew that was going to be a strong possibility that something like that could happen, especially how weak the ankle was. And I think they were ready for that. But for Washington, their offensive line held up great all year. You mentioned only giving up 7 sacks. This Michigan defensive line was getting after Michael Penix Jr. And, of course, as the game went on, they were hitting them more and more. So, last thing I'll say about them, again, got to just tip your cap. Michigan had a lot of experienced players back there. And when you have guys that are in your system for 4 or 5, 6 years, they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing defensively, and you can run more complicated things, and that's really what you saw with Michigan. I know there was a report afterwards saying that they actually, either it was Michael Penix Jr. or a coach that was, talking about how just advanced that defense was, and like not being able to see college defenses run like that. It was more like NFL style defense. And that's the luxury you get when you have those older players that understand and really know what they're doing. So got to tip your cap there. And, I'm sure you're happy to celebrate your championship.
I am happy. And I did want to touch on Dylan Johnson because I talked about him Wednesday. I give that kid all the credit in the world for suiting up. If you looked how he went off the field in the semifinal game against Texas, you knew he wasn't going to be anything close to 100%. He came out all taped up, I'm sure he got shot up before the game. And like Achell said, I mean, you have the first run and his foot just gets caught in a weird spot on the same leg that's already hurt. Still went back in the game, tried to play. I think he played another 2 series. And there was this one, I mentioned the one play. There was this one play, the blitz kind of came through the middle and he was on the other side. He got to kind of slide to the left to protect Michael, and he just couldn't plant off that leg anymore. He just couldn't move, and they took him out of the game. And it was a shame because I do think it affected the game. I think if you're being realistic, the real score of this game is probably 27-13 in my opinion. And I think that makes it look a little more indicative of what really happened on the field. And after Dylan Johnson went out, I think they only ran the ball 10 more times after that. It was something like that. It was like 10 or 11 more rush attempts after that. They
had 20 total rushes, and 3 of them were by Penix. So 17 total, and he did 11 of them. So, yeah. I mean, they definitely went away from that part of the game plan. And sorry to interrupt you, Bill, but like Cottrell said just a few minutes ago, they probably planned for Dylan possibly getting hurt. But if that's the case, why not prep your backup running backs? Why not give them the ball more, just to give the other another look, just to give them, because after Michigan scored the first 3 times, Washington had 2 3 and outs in that time period, just throwing the ball when Dylan Johnson was out. Like, they completely became one-dimensional way too early, and that ultimately set the tone.
I think to answer your question though, just to compare it to the NFL. So we saw Houston and the Colts play this past week. And I know injuries didn't necessarily play a part in it, but you saw on 4th and 1, they threw it to their backup running back who had only had 11 targets all year and 6 receptions. And so I think in this situation, you're in the national championship game. You have a backup running back that has less than 200 yards. And I understand you can't be one-dimensional, but do you want to put the ball in the hands of the Heisman Trophy runner-up, or do you want to put the hands in a backup running back who you really hadn't trusted all season to move the ball against the best defense in the country? So I just think Kalen DeBoer was really between a rock and a hard place. I agree you can't go fully one-dimensional, but I also think Kalen tried to do some unconventional things. Like you saw either it was McMillan or Jalen Polk get like an end around where, they were trying to get creative and still run the ball and not be, your traditional run game. So I think he tried. I just think that, they didn't have a guy they trusted to put back there.
No, and I totally get it. But like 51 passes, Michael Penix Jr.'s the most passes he's thrown all season in the game was 42. Like 51 is crazy, man. That dude's arm in the 4th quarter looked like he was sidearming it. Like he looked like he was just done. You have to mix it up. You have to do something, man. I mean, I told you what you're saying.
Here's the problem. Dylan Johnson's a big kid. So, yeah, I mean, you saw it. You saw at the beginning of the game. Like there was a couple, like they got penetration or they made contact in the line. He was still falling forward for 3 yards. that allows, Washington 2nd and 7. I mean, that's still technically in front of the sticks. I think Washington got away from it, because they were like, all right, like we can't run for first down and lose a yard or be 2nd and 10 because we can't get behind the sticks that much, with them not even blitzing to get pressure. You're playing right in Michigan's hands at that point. Then if they know you have to throw the ball, and I think, to your point in the fourth quarter, I don't disagree, but at the same time, how many drives do you think you're going to get? Like, how many 15-play drives do you think you're going to have on that defense where you're just going to be able to run for 3 yards here, throw for 4, throw for 3 more, start over, take 6-7 minutes off the clock? Like, they didn't have time to do that. They had to score. So that again, that's just a tribute to how good that defense was. I mean, Washington was 1 or 2 in offensive efficiency all year long. And they took them right out of that. I mean, I would have liked to have, at least Dylan Johnson to the point where he could have played on the field all night. We knew he wasn't going to be 100%. That was never going to happen. And that's just part of football. But it did change the game a little bit early on. You saw him on the sideline. He looked like he was pissed and he wasn't going to come back in. And then I remember they got the ball back and he was back on the field. So I was like, all right. I'm like, thinking you just told the doctors to F off. He's going to go play football. But again, like I said, I think that was the last series that he had had for the night. But 2 very good football teams. Like I said, I said this on Wednesday. It was going to be a good story no matter who won. You were going to have the Penix. I mean, because Washington had a couple 6-year guys that, like Penix Jr. that came back for another shot to win it and transferred in. And, you were going to have a fairy tale story either way. And then you were going to have, kind of a sad, there's always a sad ending for somebody, at the end of the year, you ever watch Moneyball, if you lose the last game of the year, who cares? If you're not the one team that wins the last game of the year, that's the only team, that really gets to celebrate. So, great year of football. I mean, great year of football. It's been obviously it made doing this show a lot more enjoyable and fun and easier for us because we'll get into some of the awards here later. But it was a great inaugural season for this podcast to cover. It was a great season of football. Obviously, we get in the expanded playoff next year, which is going to make the end of the year just I don't. If you're a college football fan, you know what's coming. For the casual college football fan, the last 4 or 5 weeks of college football next year are going to be insanity. It is going to be so much fun to be able, to see, colleges actually host playoff games on campus. I don't think people realize how awesome that's going to be.
I'm not positive on this, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but if a seed 5 through 12 goes to win the national championship, will they be 16-0, or did the NCAA cut a game from the schedule for next year?
I think you would be right because because the first 4 would get byes, so they play 1 less game. So you play 12, so conference championship game will be 13. No, I think you'll play 17.
No, because you'll be at 13. You play your first game, and then the semifinal, and then the championship.
It won't be a semi. You start with 12. The top 4 get byes. So you'll go from 12. You'll play the first.
Oh, you're right.
You'll play the first round games. You'll go down to 8. Then you'll go to the semis. Then you'll go to the final. So if you're seeded 5th or lower to run the table, you'll have to be 17-0.
But chances are, though, if you're 5 through 12 anyway,
you're not undefeated.
Probably not.
You're not going to be
undefeated, unless you're the group of 5 team.
True.
Yeah, that's your only shot.
So let's not jump the gun on this a little.
For sure.
We're literally going to get into this in like 15 minutes, and we will go over everything about what's going to happen next year.
I did just want to throw in like one quick tidbit here before we get into the coaching news. Bowl Mania, don't have the graphic for it, but the 3 you see here are the 3 that ended up tying for the top.
So there's a little.
That's hilarious, by the way.
It is hilarious. So there's a little. I don't say controversy. There's a little. Gene went and picked Washington because he thought all you guys. Well, he knew I was going to pick Michigan, so he had to try to find a way to get tied. So he picked Washington thinking everybody else picked Michigan, and I was going to pick him up a game. So I think he's a little, I think he's a little, I don't want to say bitter because bitter is not the right word. He's not bitter, but, I think he's a little disappointed. Got to give him credit, though. He came in second. I mean, he is, if you look at if
he would have picked Michigan, like he said was going to happen, would have tied for first with us.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, man. Like 35 people entered, and like all three of us are tied for first. Like that's right. People are on the show, man. The right people are on the show.
Well, I mean, I only know first place, but so it's
this year.
No, I've won it all 3 years. Well, I tied this year, but still tied for first.
Yeah, you're sharing the title now.
Sharing the title with my esteemed co-host this year.
That's the Michigan way, usually.
Yeah, right.
So this
year, like Jim Harbaugh sharing coaching responsibilities.
Listen. You had a nice decade-long run of being the relevant Big Ten program, and you're not anymore. Get used to it. We are now the relevant Big Ten team until you win one. I got to give Gene credit though, and I'm gonna say give Gene some love. If you look at, I don't want to say Gene and Cottrell can jump in here. When we started Wire to Wire, me and Cottrell clearly that was the first thing we bonded over. He was a huge Ohio State guy, I was a Michigan guy. So very early on, that me and Cottrell were just gonna be college football's our thing. Gene likes it now, and Gene has come a far way, with getting into it and following it, and I would say actually enjoying it now. Gene was not about college football at all when he started Wire to Wire, at all. Knew we had to do it, but wasn't really excited about it. Did it by the seat of his pants. The man is a legit fan now. If there's one gripe I have, it would be that he would just pick one goddamn team and that's part of the pain of college football every year. You got to ride and die with your school. So me and Cottrell got to work on that. We got to get him down to one team. We just got to get him to just we
go all in on the Penn State train.
We need a Penn State insider, and he's capable of doing it. We need him to be the Penn State guy. We will be very Big Ten heavy now, but that's okay. I mean, because I hate to say it, but where we air this,
the best conference in the goddamn sport.
It's that, and where we air, where most of our fans that watch our show, it's Big Ten country. And we now have Alex coming in with Oregon, so we have the whole West Coast lockdown now. Justin Lauder is in here again this morning, as always, so thank you. We just got to get Gene to settle down on the Penn State, because I think he's capable of some really good, James Franklin rants down the road here. We just got to do that. But he's come a long way. He has come a long, long way on college football. So I do want to give him some credit. So him coming in second, going into the championship game with an actual chance to win the contest, I got to give the big guy some credit. So, but yes, three of us. I actually blew this, So, and I it's nobody's fault but my own. I picked Washington on both shows. I forgot to go into the app and switch over to Washington because I picked Texas when I originally filled it out. If I would have done that, I would have won again. But it's okay. It's good for the show that we're all going to split the crown this year. I give you guys credit for keeping up. I think there was a lot of trash talk in the middle. Cottrell was up by 6 games. I could see it in his eye.
I don't think it was ever that much. I don't think it was 6. I don't think it was quite 6.
There was one point you were up. I'm almost positive it was 4 or 5 games. And then I started looking, and we had opposite picks, and I started catching up. And then I can't remember what game it was. It was a game. Oh, it was the stupid game that I gave you crap for changing because I was I'm going to catch up on here. And then I logged on and Cottrell switched his pick from what he picked on the show. I was oh, all right, that's how we're going to. This is cutthroat this year. This is cutthroat. This is what we're going to do. But I could see in your eye. You thought you were going to win this year. You had that little gleam.
I did.
That little gleam.
I had to share a little bit. That's all.
Yeah. It's all right.
I had a stretch of 12 in a row hit, and that's what got me back in because I was a game below 500 at one point. Yeah. And then this third Saturday, I hit 12 out of the 15 games that played, and that's what got me back in.
I did opposite of what I usually do. I usually start off slow, and then as we get down to the bigger stuff, I get everything right and kind of climb back into it. This year, I started off hot. The middle was garbage, and I got almost everything right at the end to catch back up to you two. So it was fun. Like I said, it's I'm the double champ this year. Sorry, it's the first year it's been done. Hold your applause. It's okay. There's next year for everybody. But it was fun. But saying if you're watching the show for knowledge, all three of your co-hosts here tied for first. Just saying. And the other guy tied for second. So from our other show. So I'm just saying, I don't know where you're getting your info or where you're watching your pregame show. It's not any better than here. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm saying.
It's a good call out. So where are we going next?
We're going to go to the big bombshell news of the week.
Job heard around the world.
Yeah, that it was. It was a fast and furious middle of the week here. The GOAT, in my opinion, I don't really think it's debatable. I know some people are throwing certain people's names out there, and I just think it's blasphemous. But Nick Saban announced in the middle of the week that he was stepping down. They did a really good job of keeping it quiet. And I do truly believe I saw his interview the other day. I'm sure you guys have as well. He said he didn't decide until, after the Rose Bowl. And I believe that, because I do believe as tight knit as, he the ship that he runs, and it is, you don't, Alabama is not one of the programs you get leaks out of ever. But nobody knew. Nobody knew. He walked in that day and sat down with the AD and the president and then addressed the team. And nobody really knew until an hour or so after that still. Walking away, saying he just doesn't have the energy to do the job up
for what it takes
to do the job up to his expectations. And if there was ever a man that, deserved, the belief and the respect and the benefit of the doubt for that, it's Nick Saban. I'm going to just go over some of the crazy accolades, and then we can obviously just feel free to discuss all this. 206 at 29 overall as a head coach, 9-time SEC champion, 7-time national champion, 6 at Alabama, 1 at LSU, all 7 in the SEC though. Made the college football 8 of the 10 years. Crazy. And this was the stat for me that was just to show he didn't have pockets of dominance, just to show how long and how dominant he was. Any player that went to Alabama in the 17 years that he coached there, if any player that ever enrolled there and played for him stayed for 4 years, no matter when it was, at some point, every single one of those players won a national championship. That's crazy. Means if you stayed there for 4 years, his dominance was so long and so spread out that you got a ring. You won a national championship no matter what. I think he was the guy that we kind of all love to hate, and we love to hate him because of how good they were, and how good they were every single year. He was the standard for college football. He will be the standard for college football. He is the guy everybody's going to try to chase. I think with the way the landscape as it is right now, I do think you're going to see a change in a couple years because all this crap's getting out of control at this point. I think it's going to be really hard to catch. Because I think only having 4 teams in the college football playoff, I think was, it showed how elite Alabama was every year, but you had to win 2 games to win a championship. And I think with the new format, I think it's going to be harder to do that. And you look at the guys, Dabo's got what? 1, 2, 2.
Kirby's got
2.
Harbaugh's got 1. Kirby maybe. I don't think. Dabo and Harbaugh are not going to be around long enough to even sniff it.
How many does Mac Brown have? Mac Brown has 2, right?
Yeah, Mac Brown's like 75 though.
He's old as hell and at a bad program.
I'm just saying who's active. We're just listing them off, right?
Yeah, listen. I just think when it's all said and done, I don't think anybody's getting there. I think the expanded playoff and everything else is just going to make it. There's going to be way too much parity now in college football, and that's good for the sport. It's just bad for anybody that's going to try to catch his records.
Yeah, I was also thinking earlier that with the NIL, it's going to even out a lot of the playing field across college football.
It already has.
Correct. But again, though, even with NIL the last couple of years, we've had pretty much the same teams getting into the playoff. So I think in the next few years, we're definitely going to see it completely evened out. And we're probably going to see different teams in that college football playoff every year, which will obviously make it harder for anybody to catch them with that aspect.
Correct. But yeah, I mean, listen, you guys. Cottrell's obviously a little younger. Alex is in between. But if you've been a college football fan for the last 20 years, it's kind of been the Saban show. And like I said, got to say thank you for what he's done for the sport. I was looking at the numbers. They were even saying like how much he's changed enrollment at Alabama. When he started, they were 25,000 students per year. Now they're 40,000. The revenue he's generated through the football program, it was mind-boggling. But like I said, I never hated the guy for anything personal. That's the other thing. The dude ran a clean program. Alabama's never one of those teams that was under investigation or anything like that. He ran a program, and he was just better than everybody most of the time. Great recruiter, great coach. Definitely, I don't think he gets enough credit for being a guy who really cares about his players. And I think after he retired, hearing all those guys, like how much time he actually spends in the offseason, like reconnecting with guys and, talking football or like meeting people. And I think that's part of it as well. I think that's what we've talked about it on the show. I don't think people realize that being a college football head coach is even more of a year-long job than it is in the NFL. When you're not coaching, you're out on recruiting trips. You're keeping up with your past players. You don't have a lot of downtime. There's a lot of rumors out there that his wife was sick, and he shot all that down, said she's fine. I do think it's awesome. I think everybody considers Nick kind of a type A guy, but he still calls his wife Miss Terry. Like even in like public interviews, like she runs the house, and I love that. And I love that he respects her and cares about her that much. That's how he refers to her in the press. I think that's a really cool thing. But like I said, you guys can talk about it. I'm in one aspect. I'm kind of glad that he's gone. I think it makes life easier on all three of us on the show, no matter how you cut it or slice it. But at the same time, he's a great pillar of college football, and I'll be sad to see him go.
I think the one thing too that's interesting about Nick is that the reason why he's leaving is also like he's also a big part of why NIL is the way it is right now. Like, let's not forget 3-4 years ago, Bryce Young was the first one to get this huge NIL package of $1 million to be the quarterback at Alabama. So it's just funny that, like, of course, this is the reason that he's going, but his influence on the game even stems to the part of the game that he doesn't like. Bryce Young getting all that money back then. I'm not saying he was the only one, but Bryce Young was definitely one of the pioneers of getting the huge NIL deals that everybody heard about. So I think that even adds on to his greatness too.
It does. And I agree with you. But in that aspect, Bryce Young's NIL deal was the way it was supposed to be structured. It was like,
for sure,
you were sponsored, he agreed to do like commercials and stuff like that. And like, it wasn't, hey, here's a bag of cash, go to Texas, because that's what it's become. But yeah, he was, Bryce Young was the first really big guy. But listen, you've seen it with other sports. Like, Jay Wright left Villanova for this reason. It's not some big secret. He didn't want to deal with the portal, and he didn't want to deal with trying to figure out, how to make these guys millionaires, and deal with the boosters and all that stuff. And that's why he left. I said it a couple minutes ago. I do think you're going to see it reversed at some point, because I hate to say it this way. Something bad is going to happen. It's just inevitable. It is. You're giving these kids access to things at 18 and 19 years old that they would never have, that they shouldn't have. Something bad
that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Well, I hate to say it. It has. It kind of got swept under the rug. It's happened in Georgia multiple times. Just they haven't killed a football player yet, and I hate to say it that way, but that's the reason the way it got.
Didn't Didn't a Georgia player pass away after their national championship game last year, driving intoxicated or racing through the streets?
Well,
yep.
Yeah. And again, they were in cars that neither one of them should have had. And one of those guys is on the Eagles right now. Jalen Carter was one of the guys racing.
Yeah.
He was in a $130,000 SUV that, a sophomore in college shouldn't be able to afford. But I don't want to go off a tangent on that. But it's I do think you'll see it correct itself, because I saw a couple articles that are like, when the NCAA kind of gets off their hands here and actually starts to regulate this, I think a lot of people are going to scramble to see if he'll come back. I don't think he will. I think he's done, because I think the only place he would ever go back to would be Alabama. And we're going to talk about his replacement in a second, but I am one of those guys that firmly believes Nick Saban's done, because I feel like if he really thought he could do it, kind of like Cottrell said, I don't think he would let the NIL thing be the only reason why he would retire, and it's not. And it's and that, like I said, I think you just have to respect him. It goes to show he didn't think he could do it to the level that he expects out of himself, and he's like, I'm too tired, and I don't have the juice for it, and I'm going to step away. It's not right to the kids. That are coming here expecting to be coached by me the right way for 4 years. So like I said, you got to tip your cap to him. I think he's done, though. I don't think we see Nick Saban coach again. I'm sure he's going to show up with some kind of honorary job to, so he can have access to the program every now and then, and, still be able to walk around,
special consultant.
Yeah. And that's fine. I mean, he's earned it. I don't have any problem with that.
I think you're going to see that for at least the next 2 years, just because I do think he doesn't want to give up on that class that came in from last year. But I do think, there's going to be a time, probably in the next couple of years, where Nick Saban's like, all right, I gave all I could. He's probably going to show DeBoer like how to recruit in the South. And then, I think he's going to walk off into the sunset and go be on ESPN and take a Lee Corso's spot, because that's a spot that should be open here now in reality.
I don't disagree with you. So,
Alex, I didn't want to steal your thunder there, but I just want to throw that in.
No, it's okay. No, I mean, it'd be nice to see Saban stay on. My favorite coach in Oregon Ducks history is actually Coach Mike Bellotti. He coached late 90s, early 2000s. When he retired from coaching, he stepped into the athletic director role with the University of Oregon, and he was able to stay with the program, kind of help them kind of transition into the new regime. And also he had a lot of part in day-to-day as the athletic director. I'm not sure if Nick Saban wants to go that route. I'm sure Alabama's already set up an athletic director position, but it would be nice to see him, participate in the university in some fashion in that kind of role, where he doesn't have to travel with the team, but he's still kind of a face of the university. And I think that will help keep players there and keep continuously bringing players in as well. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see what he does next. I mean, I think he deserves to take a year off, and he's been grinding for the last 40 years.
Yeah, he has. And that's what college coaching is. It's a grind. I mean, you look at it, it's so weird. I was watching something with even Harbaugh the other day, and it was only from 3-4 years ago. And it's crazy how much older he looks now than he did, how much he's aged.
Those jobs are.
Yeah, I mean, even Ryan Day. You look at the funny video of when Urban kind of handed him the program, and Ryan Day's got gray hair now. It's
oh yeah, he definitely uses some just for men. That's for sure.
He does, and it's like I said, I mean, to be the captain of one of these programs, I don't think people realize, the behind the scenes pressure and the pressure they put on themselves. Listen. You don't become that great of a coach to get to that level where you're coaching a top 10 program year in and year out with not setting the bar for yourself extremely high. Those are not jobs where you can be I went 8-4 this year, it's okay. No, those guys don't sleep at night. It is and it's a year-round grind. We saw it with even Harbaugh and Saban this year. They were we won our conference championship games. We're sending the kids home for a week for Christmas. And, that week we'll be out recruiting. So they're flying all over the country. Kids come back, practice. They go to the Rose Bowl, obviously for Michigan. They went back, practiced again. Like, it doesn't stop. Like, it's these next couple, weeks are really the only down weeks they have. And it's with the portal now, it's not even really down weeks. You're constantly in communication with kids, looking for new places to play. Like, they don't stop. It is a 365, 24/7 job. It really is. And that's why I think you see a lot of guys get burnt out. I mean, you saw Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer was on top of the world in Florida, and he started heart was going to explode. Doctor's like, you need to stop coaching. And he took a couple years off, and obviously came back to Ohio State and had a great run there. But
then the same thing happened.
Yeah.
Heart, headaches, and all that stuff.
Other stuff too, but yeah.
I mean, for sure. Other stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
no doubt about that.
Yeah, but that's what it is. Like, these jobs are nuts, man. Like, it is not easy. And to be elite, you got to outwork the other guy, and I think that's kind of what he said. He's like, yeah, I just can't do that anymore. I do agree with Cottrell. I think Nick would be a great replacement for Lee. I don't know when they're going to pull the plug there.
I think someone will. I think he'll pull the plug on himself probably before that happens. He's gonna die on that set.
And that's what I don't want to see, or I don't want to see them be on the road and be like, yeah, like, Lee didn't wake up this morning, because I feel like that's where we're headed. Like, if you don't know what we're talking about, we're talking about Lee Corso, College Game Day. Listen, I can speak for myself, and I've talked to Cottrell about this before. I'm sure Alex same way. I grew up that was my mornings on Saturday morning. You got up 10 o'clock, and got ready for the day and watched that show. It's a great.
I've been to 3 College Game Days. They're amazing.
It's amazing. Lee is the guy who does the helmet reveal for the big matchup for wherever campus they're on for the big game. He's unfortunately he's getting up there, and he's just deteriorated a lot to the point where he's not talking very clearly now, and it's I know they still want to do the helmet, the headgear reveal, and I get all that, and I don't think you can continue to do that once he steps away from the show. So you will lose a really crazy. I mean, if we're being honest, it's. I know a lot of people watch the last 10 minutes of the show just for that. So it's true. It is a staple of the show. It is kind of like the grand finale of the show. But I just don't want to.
I will say this. I think if ESPN wants to continue it, they already have the guy on set that would be perfect for it.
They do. And
Pat McAfee doing that every week would be absolutely hilarious. Like, all he has to do the first week back, if you don't have Corso, you're talking about Corso enjoying retirement, all this stuff, and he's like, I'm not letting the tradition die just because Corso's not on set, and then he could just put it on and then be good to go. Like it.
I agree. I mean,
I love it.
He is kind of the audience guy now. I know a lot of people have very differing opinions of Pat McAfee. I love Pat McAfee.
So do I.
I think he's kind of the new breed, and I think he's more of our generation, and he likes a more laid back, fun show. It doesn't have to be a stuffy, give me the stats and highlights thing. And a lot of us respond better, to that. He is obviously the guy. I don't know if you want to pass it to McAfee, because I don't know if McAfee's going to commit to that show for the next 30 years. And I just don't think you. I don't think you want to this year's headgear guy is going to be so and so. I don't think they want to water it down, but they'll figure it out. But that being said, Lee Corso is another guy. He's a legend. Guy was a coach in football. We're way off topic here, but
Kalen DeBoer. How does Kalen DeBoer change Alabama? That's the big.
Well, I said it a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the Texas A&M job. About how DeBoer? I said he was the top candidate for A&M. He needed to segue his Washington success and losing Penix and all those guys and use that success to get another job. I just did not think it was going to be Alabama. So that was kind of a shocker. I was thinking A&M originally.
I will say he fell into the perfect recruiting cycle, and the timing of that was impeccable. Because in reality, I feel like he was probably the 5th, maybe 6th guy on Alabama's list to go after.
They said
that's not even a slight to him.
They said in an interview yesterday it was always. I don't believe him.
Of course they say that. Of course they say that.
I mean, we know of 3 or 4 people at least that definitely.
Dan Lanning doesn't come out. No. Dan Lanning doesn't come out with a Oregon hype video if it was always Kalen DeBoer. I'll tell you that.
No, because
they would have just hired. They would have hired DeBoer on the spot, and we wouldn't even heard about other candidates and all that stuff. So, But I mean, Kalen DeBoer, look, you talk about a coach that's won at every level, FCS, FBS.
Yeah.
You know, this Washington team, he's only lost 3 games in 2 years with them. Like that's incredible for where they're at right now. I think Kalen DeBoer, there's no question if he can coach. To me, I think the biggest question mark is, can he recruit in the South? He's never had any job down there in the South. And a lot of those big time players, you know, from the South, usually those guys come to Alabama because of that pipeline between either Kirby or Saban. Like a lot of those guys don't leave out of there. So I think that's going to be the interesting thing. You know, I think it's going to be tough to always try and bring in those West Coast guys. And I think it is great that Saban is staying, at least for now, because I do think that helps with that pipeline and keeping it open. But I think that's going to be the biggest thing for me moving forward. If Alabama can retain their success in recruiting the South and just keeping up with those recruiting classes as well.
I think I think you got to give all the guy credit in the world. I mean, this is a meteoric rise, and it happened quickly. Started at the University of Sioux Falls. Didn't know that was a thing until like 2 weeks ago. Won 3 consecutive NAIA championships there. Became an assistant coach for a couple places, Eastern Michigan. I forget the other 2 schools. Got to stay at Fresno, had 2 great years there, and went right to Washington. Had the COVID year where they were bad, went 11-2 last year, and then obviously lost 1 game this year. Gets the Alabama job. That is, in a 10-year span, that is a crazy, crazy ride.
He was the OC at Indiana in 2018.
And it was
to go from there to being the Alabama head coach is absolutely nuts.
Well, that's how he got Penix, was being the OC at Indiana. That's how he was able to land him. So that really obviously segued him into his success. I don't know if he has the success without Michael Penix, honestly, going to Washington. I don't know if he's able to segue that into this Alabama job.
I don't think anybody thinks they're 14-1 in the national championship without Michael Penix this year. I think that's an easy one.
But if it's not Michael Penix though, like I do think it could have potentially been somebody else. I'm not saying that Michael Penix Jr. is just growing trees and he would have got whoever he got would have been the Heisman Trophy runner up. But like, I do think it would have been clearly somebody else. Like,
it's true. It's a good point.
I think he can coach. Fresno State. We've talked about them a couple years on Wire to Wire, even before we started this show. Not even realizing, at least for me, that Kalen DeBoer is the guy that really sparked that success.
Yeah. I think Saban staying kind of around. I think as long as we don't have this upcoming week, we don't have 20 Alabama guys in the portal, I think he's going to be okay. Because here's the thing. I think if the first 2 years he can concentrate on coaching with what he has there already, I mean, the cupboard is obviously stocked. Like, he's fine. If he can get through those first 2 years, kind of, let Saban take him under his wing a little bit and let him maneuver kind of the boosters and all the behind the scenes crap and, learn how to recruit in the South, like Cottrell said, which it is important. It's, a lot of kids say they like have open recruitment. They don't. There's a lot of kids that if you're a 5-star and Nick Saban came and knocked on the door, they know they're going there because of the pipeline in the NFL. I mean, it's the reality of the situation. There's nothing wrong with that. If you can keep that pipeline at least on and flowing, it doesn't have to be necessarily, to the tip top like Saban has it, but as long as he keeps it consistent, he'll be successful down there. He can coach. I think the bigger part of him is going from a Washington program, which, however you want to cut it, it's not a top 10 program. It's just not. He was kind of free to, doesn't have media up his butt every day out there, in Spokane. Like he went from a very good football program, but not a blue blood program, to the program, to where excellence is not only demanded, it's expected, and if it's not, you're gone.
It's like someone going from the Cavs to the Lakers, like automatic, already media hype. You have a lot more pressure.
I don't know. I don't know how you got to do that. Don't antagonize the man. It is.
Oh, well, I'm just comparing like the amount of pressure and stress is like in Washington. He's getting like hardly any press besides ESPN occasionally, but like he's not getting the press he's going to get at Alabama, and that that job demands more media attention, which will take him away from the job a little bit more. So it's really going to see how he can balance out the finer things.
It is, because I agree with Cottrell. I think the man can coach football. The man knows football. That is not the part of it I'm worried about. The part of it is the recruiting and how he's going to handle the pressure of the behind-the-scenes stuff, with the people that are involved in that program. And I think Nick had to play ball with a lot of them in the beginning, to kind of earn their trust and everything else. And then he got so good at the end, then it was like, well, no, I'll decide when I show up for booster dinners. I'll decide. Like, I make the decisions now because I'm the guy that's won 3 of the last 6, national championships. Until Kalen gets to that point, or if he ever does, that is the part that's going to be hard for him to navigate. Like you see it in like movies all the time. Like, it's funny, but like even like, Friday Night Lights, like, when you're a job like that, you guys you'll just drive around and see somebody in the grocery store and they're going to ask you 90 questions, or they're going to be like, hey, like, kind of, you say passive aggressive things about like your future. Like, that's what Alabama football is. Like, don't kid yourselves. Nick just became a master of doing it on the field and off the field, and it requires both there. So I'm curious to see how it shapes out for them. I think it's a good hire. Obviously, I think Dan Lanning was their number one because I think he's a little bit younger, and I think they wanted to, really kind of protect themselves that if they could get a really good coach that was younger, that's the way they wanted to go. Dan decided to stay with Oregon.
Smart.
I think so. I mean, I don't, that's my personal feeling. I think Dan Lanning made the best decision for him. And I think Dan Lanning going to the Big Ten with the roster he has was a good decision. I also think Oregon's a better program than Washington. So I think it's a different decision for Kalen DeBoer than it was for Dan Lanning.
For sure. I mean, I definitely agree with that. And I think the other thing too is that Dan Lanning at this point has built the Oregon roster to fit what he wants to do. And I think him going to Alabama, a lot of the guys that he brought in through the portal, like, he would have had to try and convince those guys, hey, you're no longer going to Eugene, you're going to Alabama now.
Yep.
And I do think some of those guys would have went with him. Don't get me wrong. But and I also think, he's in a situation where he's kind of playing with house money in the sense of Oregon doesn't have that same stigma or like expectation behind them because they've never gotten to that point before. You go to Alabama and you're going behind Nick Saban that, it's really championship or bust every single season. It's a lot different pressure wise. And I'm not saying that Dan Lanning couldn't handle that. I mean, he coached at Georgia, so he knows what that pressure and expectation is like. But I think him being in that situation in Oregon, he already loves it there too. Everyone's already there behind him. The pressure isn't necessarily on his back as much as he wants to win.
Agreed. I think that's a good point. And again, I think that is why Dan Lanning was the first call. He has ties to the SEC. He understands it. And like I said, he's a younger guy. Like, that's the guy you want, because if you bring him in and he's successful, he's younger, you're like, all right, this is our guy for the next 20 years. We don't have to worry about anything. You know what I mean? He's not leaving Alabama to go anywhere else, unless he went to the pros. But like, that's the only step. Like, he's not leaving Alabama to go to a better program. You know what I mean? So it's like, if they could have got their guy and that was their guy and he was successful, like, Alabama could just sit back and relax for the next 2 decades. But I don't know if Sarkisian kind of came out, made a statement. They released a kind of a video like Oregon did. I don't know if anybody saw the Lane Kiffin video. I don't know if that's real or not.
It wasn't real. It wasn't.
I didn't think so.
That wasn't Lane.
It was funny though, because I feel like that's how the conversation with Lane probably went. They're Alabama. They were going to have the pick of the litter, and I hate to say that. And like I said it in the group chat as soon as it happened, Alex was going to sweat. I knew that was going to be one of the guys that was going to be on that list. Like, because when you're Alabama, you could have people that turn down the job like Dan Lanning or Sark or all them did, but nobody's not picking up the phone. Like
Dan Lanning 1,000% had that.
Agreed, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no shot that not one of those guys didn't at least pick up the phone and had conversations, and the school had conversations with their agent. That all happened. Alex, good for you, and Justin and everybody else. Like, Lanning decided to say, you know what, to stay here. I want to take the team that I built to the top, and and you give that guy credit for doing that. Like like I said, I think many.
You know why we didn't hear from Dan Lanning the night that the news was breaking? That man was at home with his son watching Jason Bourne, and he had his phone on silent, having a night with his kid. So he knew exactly where he was. He was in Eugene watching movies with his son. After the movie ended, he had like 50 text messages. He said, blowing up. He's like, and he saw on Twitter that he was supposedly in Tuscaloosa, and he's like, I'm in Eugene. I'm watching Jason Bourne with my kid. So it's really funny how things can kind of roll out of proportion because no one could get a hold of him. They all thought he was flying. He was just having some family time.
All right, but like, be honest
sure
though.
Before that.
Yeah, I was like, when Cottrell put that thing in the group chat about him being spotted in Tuscaloosa, you were worried. You worried. Don't lie.
I wasn't.
I
believe. I trust it. Plus,
I believe
the amount of talent he brought in. He set Oregon up for the next 3 seasons, grabbing Dante Moore. He would be silly to leave a situation that when he goes there, he could lose the entire team of Alabama if you were to go to that position. He's worked so hard to make this team his team.
Talent. I get it, bro.
Yes.
I get it. This
is
easy for you to say in hindsight because he decided to stay there.
I told you. I wasn't worried.
When your last 4 coaches use Oregon as a parlay into their next job,
what happens.
What else do you call it?
Chip Kelly. Terrible. Well, Mark Helfrich didn't use. Mark Helfrich didn't use us. He went to broadcasting, so we can't throw him in there. I love Mark. Can't talk crap about him. But we got what's his face? Mario Cristobal, failure. Willie Taggart, failure. Chip Kelly,
but again,
some success.
We're not talking about their success. I'm talking about what they did. Like, they didn't leave. Correct. I'm not saying they were great coaches that left.
I'm pointing out. He learned from their previous mistakes not to leave Oregon, because if he does, he's going to fail.
I mean, what did they leave behind, though? I mean, they might not have had success their last program, but at their next program. But what they leave behind?
It's a fair point, though. It is
Nike, money, job security, success.
None of that is a championship. It's not like they left a program that was prestigious to go to another prestigious program and fail.
I don't think
we've been to 2 college football playoffs in the last eight college football playoffs right for 10 years.
No. I'm not saying Oregon's not a good team. That's not what I'm saying. So don't put that in my mouth. But what I'm saying is it's not like these coaches left a school that had national championships they're walking away from, or crazy talented rosters. Like, a lot of the times when guys left, like when Chip left, DeAnthony Thomas was already going to the NFL. Like those guys were on their way out. Like, sometimes you just have to parlay it to the next step.
Yeah, they pulled Kalen DeBoer.
Hey, can you blame Kalen for? Dante's going to the league. Penix Jr. is going to the league. Dylan Johnson declared he has a shot at Alabama, one of the top 5 programs in the entire country. You got to take that 10 times out of 10.
Listen. Kalen DeBoer made the right decision, and I mean this. I mean this wholeheartedly. If he would have turned it down and stayed at Washington, that was the wrong choice for him. It made the most sense for him. I understand why it didn't make sense for Dan Lanning. I understand why it didn't make sense for Sarkisian. Like, that stuff all makes sense to me. They're already at huge programs. I mean, in Texas, obviously a blue blood. Mike Norvell's at Florida State. He's built that team back up to kind of close to what it was, back in the Bobby Bowden age. He's on the verge of doing that. Lane, I think, is the one. I mean, listen, Alabama's a better job than all of them, but Ole Miss out of the 3 of them is the bigger step up to a. I would have understood if Lane took it. I was kind of shocked that he didn't. If I'm being honest,
he's built a hell of a roster there too. I mean, Ole Miss, I think, might be the SEC.
We'll see.
I mean, besides Georgia, might be the one of top 2 teams in the SEC next year.
You got to realize he brought in 3 or 4 kids that are we're expecting to be very good. He's still got to coach them. He's still got to beat Bama. He's still got to beat LSU. There's still the other 40 kids on the team that are very good, but there's a gap between them and the other 40 kids on those other schools. So,
not to mention they lost their best offensive weapon.
Yeah. So
Jackson Dart's still there.
I mean, I'll side with Control on this one.
I do think though too, just not again. This last thing I'll say, specifically with Dan Lanning, I think it would be different if he had that success last year at Oregon and then didn't bring in Dylan Gabriel and Evan Stewart and Dante Moore and all those guys. Like if that class from last year was just leaving and he had brought in Will Rogers and just a couple of other like quiet pieces, I do think he would have seriously considered taking that Alabama job. But I just think with the roster that he's created over there at Oregon, I think that's really why he didn't leave. He could say he loves Oregon all he wants to. I think it's just that he feels like he's in a better position at Oregon. If he didn't build this program the way he did, I do think that he would have used that Oregon job to move on to Alabama.
Let me also say though is that people forget that Dan Lanning is young. All right, he has school age. He has school age children, and I think that also might play. No. But what I'm saying is, I think that may also play a part in why he stayed in Eugene. He's got school-age kids. He may not want to move them all around constantly. He just moved to Eugene a couple of years ago. His kids are getting settled. He may not want to uproot them again.
It's 100% part of it.
Alabama's. So, I mean, I think that's the reason. I think, he's at Oregon until his kids are done with school, if I'm completely honest with you. So I think he's there at least another decade because I think his kids are like 10 or 12 or something like that. So I think he's there for the long haul for sure.
I'm not going to lie to you. I do know that that's a part of it. In reality, I don't think he would hold back. Like if Georgia's job opens up in the next 2-3 years and Oregon still hasn't like won anything or progressed to where he wants to go, I can 100% see Dan leaving that job. I think he's safe if his kids get up to high school. If it's before high school, I think you got a chance for him to go.
That job might open up in 2 or 3 days, so we'll see.
True.
You might have dodged the Alabama bullet, but there might be one more in the chamber because I don't know if he tells Georgia no. So that will be interesting.
Where's Kirby going? He ain't going nowhere.
Atlanta. Yeah, he's going the same place Cottrell thinks he's going, and I agree with Cottrell.
Well, speaking of open jobs that are open right now, all right, not future possibilities. What about Washington? I mean, do you see anybody taking over Kalen DeBoer's spot? I mean, you saw the report that I sent in the group chat earlier about Jonathan Smith. Saying that he regrets taking the Michigan State job now that
if that's true Washington. Or not, though.
I would regret it. I would sure as hell regret it.
I would say regret it because you're already over on the West Coast. So like I get that aspect of it. But I don't think there's any shot that he goes and coaches at Washington. Like I don't see that happening. To be honest, if I'm Washington, what I do, because you're so late in the process, Washington is a good job, but let's be honest, they're going to be on a down year this year. And it's not that they have a great recruiting class coming in. I think Washington should hire a interim, throw the interim tag on somebody, say they're the head coach, go the whole year, see how it plays out. Because it's not like they have championship aspirations anyway this upcoming year. Will Rogers just hit the portal. So we don't even know who's going to be their quarterback next year. So I wouldn't try to seriously go after a guy right now just because you're late to the party. Those top guys are already either set their stand or have made their decision to go to their next job. So I'd hire the interim guy, go a year, and then see what happens next year after the season goes.
You know who I want if I'm Washington?
I'm going to disagree with you for the I don't think with the momentum Washington has and the other good players they still have on that team, Will Rogers can still turn around and recommit back to Washington if they hire a good coach. So I think there's 2 names they have to look at and they have to at least have phone conversations with. One is Jeb Fish from Arizona. If he has another good year, I mean, listen, that guy is kind of in a no-win situation right now. He's going to be playing in what's left of the Pac-12 and whatever else, next year. That guy is going to be on everybody's radar next year. And if you're Washington next year, if you're coming off the year with an interim coach in a bad year, your chances of getting somebody like him are probably decrease. I would call him now, see if you can get him now. And then you're talking about, with the kids that he ends up probably bringing with him. He'll bring his quarterback with him. That kid will hit the portal in 2 seconds. He'll go to Washington along with that wide receiver. I think it's totally different. It's a totally different football team all of a sudden. I think the other name to watch out for would be Lance Leopold from Kansas. Same kind of thing. These guys are going to be guys that are going to be primed for big jobs next year. That if they're up for openings in bigger programs, if you're Washington, you probably don't have the pool or the chance to get next year. So those are the 2 guys I would target. I know it's late, but listen, these are the hands that were dealt. Nobody thought Saban was going to retire, in the middle of January, and it's a domino effect now. You just don't want to be the last team that doesn't have a domino to replace. You don't want that to be Washington. You can't feel bad for yourselves now. Your head coach left. You got to call Arizona and see if you can steal their head coach. Put it on Arizona or put it on Kansas. You can't go to the Big Ten your first year and have an absolute disastrous year. You can't let it happen. You just can't. You got to figure something out.
Cottrell, do you have a couple of candidates that you have in mind for Washington's position that you've thought of?
The only person that I think if Washington goes out and hires a guy who they want for their future, I think it should be a coach that is not currently coaching a team. I think if Washington wants to go after somebody that has a track record of recruiting good players in college and isn't with a team right now, I think the name that comes to mind for me would be Cliff Kingsbury. I think he's a guy who can be at least it's a guy who has aspirations of going to the NFL anyway. And so I think he's a guy who can bring in top recruits, have some success early on in the Big Ten. And, in reality, you keep him as long as he wants to be there. And once he's ready to move on to that next job, I think he's a guy who can keep Washington's organization stable for the next 2 to 3 years, recruiting wise and, game wise as well, before he makes his next move to the NFL. So that's just like the one name that sticks out to me. Of course, just throwing another one out there just because I feel like I float his name out there with every job opening right now. Jimbo Fisher. If you want to just go, again, get a guy for some stability, at least for the next few years, that can coach and keep you competitive, I think that's another one that could potentially make sense as well.
Yeah, I've been looking at a couple of names too. For me, there's 3 names that I really like. One of them is Willie Fritz from Houston. He had a lot of success at Tulane. He's had a lot of success in Houston. I think that he's been moving up the ranks. I think Washington would be a good spot for him next. I also believe, and this is kind of more of this would be funny if it happened, is the guy that already lives in Seattle. His name's Pete Carroll. He's available. He had success at USC. He's someone that is local to the area that if you want to keep recruiting successfully locally, someone all the kids growing up knows because they're probably Seahawk fans. So they know who Pete Carroll is. He's had success at USC. I think to me, if Pete Carroll wants to coach, that's a great spot for him. And then another one, if they decide to go the route like Cottrell had mentioned, where they do decide to go an interim route this year and go get a coach next year, I'm looking at Byron Leftwich. He's coaching right now at Colorado for this year, I believe as a quarterbacks coach. He's a successful offensive coordinator in the NFL, and he wants to be a head coach. I think he'd be a great transition for him to go from Colorado after a year, get back in the college swing of things and how everything runs, and then takes over a job at Washington. He's a high-profile name. It's his first job. Great college quarterback. I think he would be really successful in recruiting. But that's who I have if they decide to go the interim route. I like Byron Leftwich after this next season.
I'll tell you this, though. If they hire Byron Leftwich, it damn sure won't be as an interim route. Like, he's going to be like, I want a 4 or 5 year deal.
No,
if you want me to leave Colorado and Shedeur,
I'm saying if they do the interim, like for 2024, if you were saying, if they do the interim, because Leftwich is already committed to Colorado for this upcoming season. Not that he probably wouldn't leave for a head coaching job, but if they did go the interim route, I think after this year, they would go after Leftwich.
I gotcha.
All right. I think we've covered all the coaching carousel for now. We'll see what happens in Washington. We'll probably have news on that, by next weekend. So I can't assume, they're going to let that hang out there too long. I just see on Twitter that Dubs the dog has entered the portal. Looking to transfer to Connecticut and take over the Husky job there. He's disgusted with the whole situation. So I'm glad somebody's looking out for the dog. We will where we go next? We'll talk about portal.
Yeah, I would say just cover portal real quick, just because had a couple big moves and some more names entering the portal.
Evan Stewart, baby, best receiving core in the nation in Eugene, Oregon.
Lord.
Dude, we got 2,000-yard receivers. Like, we have one of the top, I think, top 10
teams play defense in the Big Ten.
We were top 15 defense last season, and we brought in Cam Alexander on the back end from Texas San Antonio. Like, we're stacking the defense. Don't think we're just focusing on offensive players, all right? We were top 20 or top 15 defense last year. We're not bringing USC's defense to the Big Ten.
What 1,000-yard receiver are you talking about?
Trayshawn Holden. Bo Nix's brother.
Because
they always talk
Evans
about.
Evans definitely not that guy.
He did have 1,000 yards last year.
No, he did not.
He did not.
He was like Evans. He was probably like Texas A&M's like third leading receiver last year.
Oh shit! Yeah, I must.
He did not have a good year.
Yeah, 38 receptions, 514 yards. I'll take it. Though.
Tez Johnson, I will give you that, Justin. I do like Tez.
That's who is.
You like Tez, and I think Evan. Look, Evan has all the talent in the world. I just think it's him versus himself, really. I think mentality-wise, obviously, I think the A&M situation didn't work out how they planned it to. And then also he has to stay healthy. I think if you get that, then, you're going to be in a good spot. I 100% understand why you're happy about the signing. I will say that.
Oh, I get it. I mean, I think if the only thing I would be concerned about if I was working with him is immediately when he hit the portal, there was stuff leaking like how he was awful in the locker room. And that is
A&M players trashed him.
That is never good. Like it was like, he's for sure in the portal. Like he's not coming back. Yeah, dude's a dickhead. Like it was quick.
Bitterness is ugly. All right.
Listen, there ain't nobody on an A&M that can't go anywhere else if they don't want to, bro. It's not like he was like the 5-star gem on a crappy team. But listen, we've seen it before. Change of scenery, change of coaching staffs and culture. It matters. Again, I've never been a big Jimbo guy. I think Jimbo won the lottery with Jameis Winston, and then everybody just bought into he was something different than he was. And I've been adamant about that. He got lucky and had one of the best college quarterbacks of all time, won a national championship, and whatever. The rest has been what it's been. I don't think Jimbo Fisher's a good coach. I don't. So, I mean, again, Oregon is kind of that, you saw it with Bo Nix this year. It's kind of that culture program. The Michigan kids talked about it at length. I mean, Ohio State, Bama, these kids all have culture. It's a winning culture. Either show up and, you help the team win and do your part, or, you kind of stick out like a sore thumb. And I think that's what happened at A&M. So we'll see if his attitude adjusts with a new uniform and a new coaching staff. Nobody is jealous, Justin.
Yes, you are.
We got Quinshon Judkins out the portal, so I am far from
one kind of befuddled me. I'm not gonna lie. Not that he went to Ohio State, obviously. I mean, they always have good running backs. I thought for sure when he committed there that it was a signal that Travion was going to the league, and if that was the case, it completely made sense. With what else
this was happening.
With what else
you did,
what else they lost in the portal, it made sense. He'd be the cow, the bell cow. Listen, I mean, listen, I've gone through it the last, 2 years with Donovan and Blake. It can be done. You're always going to have one guy that's more happy than the other, and you saw it a lot this year with Blake and then Donovan's carries went down. Still had his, still had arguably 3 of the best, biggest 6 or 7 runs of the year. One against Penn State, obviously the 2 of the national championship game. And Ryan Day's a big boy. Ryan Day will figure it out. But I mean, it's tough at the same time too. He's going to be used to going to being on the field 85% of the time, and getting 25 carries a game. That's not going to happen now. So
he's going to love this though. You got to keep his legs fresh. Like for the whole season, instead of carrying the ball 25 times a game, he's going to be carrying it 15 times a game. Come late in that Big Ten schedule when they need those big runs, he's going to have fresher legs. So I actually love this move for him. He's done enough to solidify himself in the NFL. Like if he could have, all right, because I'm going off right now. I love Quinshon. I hate Ohio State. But Judkins is a superstar, and I think for his future, this was a great move for him. One, to conserve his health so he can go to the NFL and be successful. He knows his shelf life for running backs is not that great in the NFL, so he wants to conserve his body. So I think this is a great move for him. I'm happy he went to Ohio State, but I think him and his fresh legs is going to be the reason why Ohio State's able to push through some of the tougher part of the schedule this year. So I think it's a great move.
Why do you hate Ohio State? We're not even in the same conference yet, according to you.
I'm gonna tell you, if your team is OSU, I hate you. Oregon State, Ohio State, Oklahoma State. I got you.
Who cares about Oklahoma State?
Thank you, Justin. Justin understands. All right.
I will say, I know I mentioned it last week. As soon as he hit the portal, I had already said, Ohio State players were recruiting him hard. His last teammate was gonna be the guy to try and reel him in. And I definitely thought, I was with you, Bill. I thought if Quinshawn was coming, that meant Travion was leaving. But Alex did tell us, last week that a lot of what went into it was going to be going somewhere where he felt comfortable splitting carries to have the fresher legs and, have that draft stock. And that's not really what you see out of a lot of guys going into a year where they know the NFL is their top target for the following season. A lot of those guys want to have as most yards as possible so that they can get drafted higher and ultimately make more money because they know, it's going to be tough to ultimately get that second contract. So I was definitely surprised that he did it. Very happy that he did it. But, Ryan Day is going to have to find a way to work out having, I would say, preseason at least wise, going to have the best running back tandem in the country. So
top three,
got to figure out
easy.
Yeah, at minimum top three. So got to find a way to make that work. But I will say too, another name that I want to talk about in the portal, Jabbar Muhammad, I think is going to be a hot name. Obviously, with DeBoer leaving, going to Bama, some of the Washington players are already starting to hit the portal. Jabbar is in the portal now. Will Rogers put his name back in, like we mentioned before. I think it's going to be real interesting. And even, some of these Alabama players, they haven't necessarily put their name in the portal. I know Isaiah Bond has, the guy who caught the touchdown in that Auburn game. But there's a lot of rumors floating out about a lot of these other Bama players that could be hitting the portal here soon. So it'll be real interesting to see here for the next 30 days.
I would say the next week or two are going to be real interesting. Assuming he'll get down there probably sometime this week and really get settled in and really start talking to the kids. And then
he's there now. They had a meeting either late last night or this morning.
I'm saying I think he'll get like stuff like he's there. He did his press conference, all that stuff. I'm saying actually getting sit down with the kids and, once they come back from break and everything, next 2 weeks are going to be very interesting. There's already a lot of rumors that Damani might go back into the portal. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Because he went down there for Alabama and Saban and his old coach who's not going to be there anymore. And then obviously Muhammad is a top of the tier, frontline cornerback. So I mean, anybody who gets him is instantly going to get better on defense. I don't know if Bama. I don't know if he follows Kalen down there with what they already have. Like I said, what they already have on campus. Plus, they have Damani coming in. Apparently, I don't know if he goes there because it's very crowded there at that point. There will be no lack of suitors for him. I know Michigan will definitely be on him because they have to replace Mike Wallace on the other side from Will Johnson. So I know they will try for sure. But he's not gonna lack any suitors or offers. He will get a bunch. He's going to get to pick and choose where he wants to play football next year. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to watch Washington, who they hire, and maybe some of those guys decide to come back and just withdraw from the portal. Like a Will Rogers or Muhammad. If they hire a big name, maybe. And then it is bad
for Will Rogers. I mean, so many spots have been taken up. Like where is open that he has the best opportunity besides staying at Washington? I think maybe they entered the portal. Didn't Tulane
they got a kid. They got Ty Thompson.
Yeah,
they got Ty Thompson.
Yeah. Exactly. They got Ty Thompson from Oregon. I don't know where he goes. That's a top program. I think he has to stay at Washington. I mean, if he wants to get the notoriety and have a chance of going to that next level, I think he's got to stay at a big program like Washington.
Listen, I mean, the biggest thing is he goes somewhere, and you're not wrong in the aspect. I mean, would it be better for him to stay at Washington versus going to Tulane? Yeah. But the important part is that he's on the field next year, and he has to keep that in mind. He can't improve his draft stock, and he can't do any of that stuff if he's not playing football next year. So he's got to go somewhere that he's going to be able to be on the field and play and put tape together and put up numbers. And and show improvement and see what he can do. So, because I don't know, do we really know what Will Rogers is? I mean, he went to Mississippi State.
He stinks.
I think he's. I'll say this: he's better than what he played, and he played on a really bad Mississippi State team with not a lot of weapons in a really tough conference. So, I mean, it's again like, what does Will Rogers look like with a decent offensive line and at least a good running back and a good wide receiver? And I think that's
stinky.
you clearly hate him. So
I think Will Rogers.
I mean, I'm just being honest with the people.
We got to
Will
see
Rogers
what it really
would be
is.
an instant upgrade at UCLA. I think
that's funny you say that. I was thinking that as well. I think UCLA could make a lot of sense there, but they already are bringing the kid that Dante Moore ultimately lost his job to. He's still there, so I don't know if you can. I think it's an upgrade, of course, but I don't know if you can even have that conversation with Chip. Like, hey, we got this young kid that's sophomore, or I think he's a redshirt. He's going to be a redshirt sophomore. Am I going to make him wait a year? And he played, some games down the stretch last year, and we're going to bring in Will Rogers, who's going to be a 5th, 6th year kid for a year. Like, I think it'll rub some people the wrong way, in that organization. So that's the other tough thing that you got to deal with now, especially with NIL being as big as it is.
Well, the problem is that Chip Kelly is in a must-win now mode. So, like, how is he willing to bet his job on this kid? That's really the question. I forget his name, so I'm sorry for saying kid. I should know his name, but I don't have it on me. Is he willing to risk his job on this kid? That's the real question, because he was almost fired this last year. If he has another dud, he's out. So why not take the risk on a guy who's come from an SEC program, who's used to being in big games every single week, and take a chance? But again, that's just my opinion. Obviously, we're going to see everything unfold. That'd be.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I think that's a school that makes a ton of sense on paper there. But I just know, especially the way of the college football landscape right now, if you have a young kid that's playing, it's going to be tough to just bring in that older guy to really just take his spot, because chances are you're going to lose him in the portal, and then you're back at square one the following season, which is, in reality, I don't think that's an awful place to be, because you want to worry about this year, not worried about fully buying all your stock in the next year, because you might not even be there the following year. But I just think that's just unfortunately how college football works right now.
True. All right. Cover portal. Let's get into the fun part of the show. Not that all of it's not fun, but
fun stuff.
We are going to project. We're going to give you our top 12 2025 expanded college football playoff picks as we sit here today. Now, this is still tough because we're all going to preface this by saying there are obviously still people in the portal. There's still people that could leave, still declare for the draft. So some of these picks, maybe the team doesn't necessarily fall out of it, but maybe team changes positions. With the Pac-12 folding, they are beating, I think, next week to reconfigure the playoff. And what it's most likely going to be is there's going to be 5 automatic berths for conferences. It's going to be ACC, SEC, Big 10, Big 12, and then the next highest non-Big 5 conference winner will automatically be in the playoff. That 5th team will not be guaranteed, obviously, a top 4 seed. The winners of those top 4 conferences are going to be seeded separately, 1 through 4. They will get a bye the first week. 5 through 12 will then play the first round games at the higher seeds home campus, which is what's going to make this fun. So, you could have Texas have to go to Ohio State in the middle of December. Good luck. So 5 through 12 will play, then the winners will play 1 through 4. They will play, get to semis, and then get down to the finals. So next year is going to be very exciting. It is going to be it's going to be crazy. The best part about it for me is you're not going to have that big layoff like you did now. I hate it. I've said from the get-go, I hate it making those teams sit for a month. You're not going to have it anymore. You're going to have conference championship games. I think they take a week off and they go right into the playoffs. I think the national championship now is like the middle of January. Next year, I think it's going to be the Sugar Bowl, I believe. I believe the semis are the Fiesta and Rose Bowl next year. And then the championship game is technically what's going to be the Sugar Bowl. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's accurate, or it's close anyway. So we're going to reveal our top 12. We'll go through them. Like I said, this is more for fun, based upon where we think teams are going to be, so forth and so on. Don't hold us to it. We'll do this again when we come back at the beginning of the year next year, once we know the rosters and, coaching staffs and all that stuff is actually set. So without further ado, are we doing these all at the same time? Or are we going one at a time? What are we doing?
We're going to have one at a time here because we got the full bracket here.
All right.
It is taking forever to load up here, but it's coming up. Alex, I believe you were first in the rotation.
Of course.
Let's see. Let's make sure. Yeah. Alex, you were first.
Here we go. Oh, look at the pretty graphics.
Super nice. Yes, so this is my college football playoff prediction for next year.
The homerism, good Lord.
Okay, look, Oregon right now only has really 3 top games for next season. We got Boise State to start the season off, which I'm very high on Boise State, as you can see with them coming in at large number 12 seed. They got Boise State, they play Ohio State at home, and they got Michigan in Michigan. That's the one game that I think could be this, it could stop them from having an undefeated season next year and ultimately taking that Big Ten championship. But for me, where I like to have the meat and potatoes is really that 5 through 12 section of my college football playoff predictions. Coming in at number 12, I do have Boise State. I think that they're making a lot of right moves.
Hold on. We have to stop this already.
Why?
Because yours isn't possible.
Why?
Because Texas and Georgia are both in the SEC.
Okay. But Texas doesn't play Georgia. Texas
doesn't
plays
matter.
Michigan.
The top 4 seeds are going to be the top. Will be the
they have to be the conference winners?
Yes, that's the way it's going to be done.
That's silly. So that would put Oregon, Georgia, Clemson, and then that would have to be
Kansas State.
Kansas State would be your 4th.
No, Arizona. Arizona would be the.
Arizona would be.
Or sorry, yeah, Arizona would be the 4th.
Arizona would be the 4th seed. Okay. All right. See, that was my bad too. I was unaware of those requirements. So if we put Arizona at that 4th spot, bounce Texas down, I'm comfortable with putting Texas at 7 because I don't think they're going to be higher than Ohio State. And that really messes up everything.
No, that's the only thing that changes. You just put Texas down against Michigan.
Yeah, there you go. So Texas against Michigan, Arizona at that 4th spot. I do think Texas is, like I said, that the Big 12 champion is really the one that's up in the air for me because you got teams like Texas. You have Arizona coming in. And Arizona and Texas do not play each other. The reason that I think Arizona ultimately will finish ahead of Texas in this case is they only play at Kansas State and at Utah. Those are the only really 2 struggling, games that I could see them struggle with. And they're both on the road. Obviously, Kansas State, I have them as number 8 seed as well. I have Kansas State has a very weak schedule. If you look at a lot of the teams on here, the main comparison is going to be how weak these schedules are. These conferences so big. There's a lot of teams coming up that really only have 1 or 2 actual make or break games on their schedule.
Speak for yourself.
Okay, Mr. Big Boy schedule. Honestly, the one team that has the biggest, honestly for me, the hardest schedule is honestly going to be Georgia. They got Clemson. They play at Bama, at Texas, at Ole Miss, and they got Tennessee. And we're not quite sure what Tennessee is going to be like next season, but that's 5 big boy games that they got coming up. So Georgia's going to really have to put in the work in order to kind of make that college football playoff and get that number 1 seed. But here's why I like Georgia. 1 loss last season. Carson Beck is coming back for another year. For those of you that don't know, do you know what happens when Georgia QBs come back for year number 2? Success. We got Stetson Bennett. First year was 2020. Came back for a second year in 2021. Won a national championship. Before him, the other second-year starter was Jake Fromm. Took them to the national championship in 2018. His second year. Carson Beck, a second year starting in a Kirby Smart system. I think he's going to have a lot of success. Obviously, their recruiting is always going to be top notch. So I really like Georgia coming out of the SEC next season, especially with Alabama's coaching change. I don't think they're going to have as much success next year. Hence why I put them at that number 11 seed, barely sneaking into the college football playoff. You guys got any questions as far as what I'm thinking, or you guys want to move on to the next?
No, I mean, Are we going how we think these play out, or are we just?
I would actually love to hear how they play out.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. We got time.
And just so we know, I got Michigan at 10. And in this scenario, I have Harbaugh staying, but I have JJ leaving. That's how I kind of have it in my head because he hasn't kind of announced either way. So that's why Michigan's at 10, just so we know. So I have so Texas versus Michigan. I do think with Quinn Ewers and not knowing who the Michigan quarterback is going to be, I do think Texas is able to pull off that win against Michigan. With Ole Miss and Alabama, I think Lane Kiffin has done enough in transfer portal this year, and Kalen DeBoer is not going to have as much success in Alabama next season. Who knows who's going to transfer out? I think Ole Miss coming back with Jackson Dart and the weapons he has on the outside, and with the defensive port transfers that they've gotten in this season, I do think, especially like Walter Nolan, for example, I think Ole Miss beats Alabama. When Ohio State and Boise State play, I don't think that's going to be much of a game. Ohio State takes care of business against Boise State. It would be awesome though if they played on that blue turf for that game, but that's obviously not going to happen. And then we got Kansas State and Penn State. I think Drew Aller can have a lot of success next season, especially with Katron Allen and Singleton coming back in the run game. But I just do think that with their new offensive coordinator, their offensive coordinator is used to more of a mobile quarterback, and Drew Allers does have mobility, but he's not. That's not going to be his main success. I do think that Avery Johnson in Kansas State is going to come out on fire and take care of Penn State at home. So that puts us at, what is that? That's
so you go Georgia, Kansas State in the first quarterfinal. Who you got?
So Georgia, Kansas State. I think this is Avery Johnson's coming out party. I'm not saying Kansas State wins, but this game is going to be a lot closer than we think. Georgia does beat Kansas State in that game, but I think that Avery Johnson becomes a household name in that game, or household name during that game. Then we'd have what? Arizona,
Ohio State would be your next.
Arizona versus Ohio State. So that would be at a bowl. From what you said, Bill, that's at an actual bowl stadium, or is that a home game for?
No,
bowl game.
That'll be a bowl game.
Okay, cool. So that would be a bowl game. Who was it again? It was Arizona versus
Ohio State.
Ohio State. Okay. So with the weapons we have at Ohio State, I do think Arizona has a little bit of problem stopping the run. And that's why they were able to have so much checks against Washington, is their secondary was really able to put the clamps down on Adunze and Polk and all them. But with Ohio State's rushing attack and the probable returners that they have, I think Ohio State takes care of Arizona pretty handedly in that one as well. And then we have Clemson would be playing, is that Ole Miss? Or Clemson would be playing. Who would be Clemson be playing? Clemson would be playing.
You said Ole Miss. You said Ole Miss would be Bama.
Ole Miss, that's right. Ole Miss would beat Bama. So I got Clemson versus Ole Miss. I would have to say the SEC would win out in that one. Ole Miss taking care of business. Dabo Swinney, had a great, had a great end of the season, winning 5 straight games. I do think though that the 4 losses they had during the regular season is indicative of what's going to kind of go in the future. Clemson's not as high up on the charts as they used to be with recruiting. He does not use the transfer portal. His way of coaching is kind of honestly on the way out, and I don't think he's going to be at Clemson for much longer.
Alex, I just made it a little bit easier for you. I'm going to add the updated graphic with how you're.
You the man. You the man.
Michigan
get wrecked. Thanks, Justin.
Why? Yeah. While we're out of here, so I found the breakdown just so everybody knows. So the first round, which will be on the higher seeds home campus, will be Friday, December 20th and Saturday, December 21st. One game Friday, 3 games Saturday. The following, 10 days later, the quarterfinals. These are the 4 bowls for the quarterfinals next year. On Tuesday, New Year's Eve will be the Fiesta Bowl. And then on Wednesday, New Year's Day, you'll have the Peach Bowl, the Rose Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl, which will be the quarterfinals. The semifinals, one will be Thursday, January 9th. The other one will be Friday, January 10th. It'll be the Orange Bowl on Thursday, the Cotton Bowl on Friday, and then the national championship game is January 20th. So this will be the latest by far that college football has ever gone. So just to give everybody an update there, I was close with some of them. I was off on the other ones. Those bowls will all rotate, obviously, every year. Yeah, so
perfect. All right, so now we got the updated graphic. So I got Georgia beating Kansas State, Ohio State beating Arizona, and then we got Ole Miss taking care of Clemson.
Oregon versus Texas at the bottom.
Oregon versus Texas, which is going to be a fantastic matchup. Obviously, as we already know, Dylan Gabriel knows how to beat Texas, and he's going to do it again next season in college football playoff with his weapons on the outside. It's going to be handled. So essentially, we got Georgia, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Oregon as the Final Four.
Okay.
So the matchups. That. So who would the matchups be? So it would be
Georgia Ohio
versus
State?
Ole Miss. Georgia, Ole Miss.
Georgia, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Oregon.
The bracket, they don't reseed after every round.
They don't reseed
okay.
it.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying on that. So we got Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Ole Miss. That's actually, I would not be upset. I would not be upset about that at all. That's a tough one because I think Ohio State has a chance of beating Georgia with the rushing attack.
I'll say right now, Ohio State's going to beat Georgia.
There we go. All right. So I got Ohio State. So I got Ohio State and Oregon in the national championship next year.
Rematch. It sounds like it'd be a rematch of the Big Ten championship.
What?
So third time.
There's no championship in the Big Ten next year, right?
Yeah, there is.
Oh, there is. Okay. Which conferences are getting rid of the championship?
None of them are getting rid of the championship. Just most of them aren't. Like the Big Ten got rid of the divisions.
Divisions. That's what they got rid of.
So at the end of the year, if Michigan and Ohio State are 1-2, they're going to play each other again the week later. You're not going to have an 8-4 Iowa team or a 9-3 Wisconsin team from the West go in and get piped by 30. So it's
Alex, your scenario would be crazy because just based on how your seating is and knowing that we go to Eugene during the season, so we'd play you guys once. Then, based on your seating, we play you again in the Big Ten championship. And then we'd see you a third time for the national championship. That would be nuts.
And we could see it happen. That's the crazy thing. The only honest thing that possibly could change, and y'all can make fun of me for this, but Cottrell saw my list, my first list that came out. It is possible that Clemson doesn't win the ACC and North Carolina State creeps in. I have a sneaky suspicion of how NC State's going to be this year. And I do think that they might be one of the front runners in the ACC once the rosters and lineups and everything is kind of announced. So that's my kind of dark horse team for next year is watch NC State.
I mean, they had a good end of the year. They kind of shit the bed in the bowl though, so we'll see.
So is this Alex? Are you saying Oregon beats Ohio State for a natty next year?
Of course he is.
Oh yeah, Oregon beats Ohio State for the natty next year. Let's go.
Okay.
All right. Or Amir Cottrell, who's ever going next? At least it'll be a realistic one.
Hey, well, what are you talking about? That is a great bracket. That was a great bracket.
So I'm gonna let my list marinate here. For the record, too, I had to change one thing here. You are out of your mind if you think Colorado is going to be the fourth best team in the country next year. By no means am I saying that. I just think their schedule is light. I think they're going to be a 2-loss Big 12 champion. That's where I'm at right now. But the way everything lines up, it just so happens that they fall in the 4 seed here. But I'll go through my first matchup here. I got Ole Miss. I think with all things that Lane Kiffin brought in, Ole Miss is going to be one of those top teams in the country. I still don't think they find their way to the SEC championship game. I still think they're, looking up at all the big dogs in that conference. But, I think that's a talented team, and they're going to find a way to still get into the playoff because they have that much talent. I got Michigan at 9. May seem like a little low. I think Jim Harbaugh's gone. I think JJ's gone. I think Jim takes the Chargers job, and once that happens, I think JJ is going to declare for the draft. And so in reality, I think that's a credit to Michigan because once Sherrone Moore takes the job, I do think it'll be in their terms a down year. I mean, they're coming off national championship year, but to still make the playoffs in his first year with all their losing all those seniors and things like that, I think that is a big accomplishment still. I would like Michigan to win that matchup. I think they would beat an Ole Miss team. Next up, I got Texas versus Boise State. Boise State seems to be the popular, group of 5 school here. I love the way their schedule lines up. They really only have one tough game. I think they could easily go 11-1 with their schedule. Plus, you're bringing in a guy as talented as Malachi Nelson. I think that you should dominate a lot of the games that you have. Plus, all the guys coming back. Then at Texas, you got Quinn coming back, and rumor has it they're going to get Isaiah Bond going to Texas as well to replace Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. So I think that's going to be a good combo for those schools there. Ultimately, I would have Texas winning that game there. Now, Penn State is the one that probably surprises some people, me having them as high as 6. I think Penn State's going to be the second best team in the conference next year. And before Ohio State announced all of the kids that were coming back this week, on Tuesday, I even texted Bill on the side. I was like, my 12-team playoff looks kind of nuts this year. I originally had Penn State slotted at number 2. I think that they should be, one of the favorites to win that conference. Drew Aller coming back. They brought in Julian Fleming. They have a great rushing attack with those 2 backs there. Justin, I get it. I know James Franklin is overrated. I just think they have too much talent to be denied. And the nice thing for them as well, they play Ohio State at home this year. And I do think Ohio State actually loses that football game. I think that's the only game Ohio State loses all season. But I do think they're probably going to make that one a whiteout. And, I think Penn State's going to be primed for a great season next year. Number 11, I got Notre Dame. I know Alex didn't have them on his list. I think Marcus Freeman is going to benefit from having a light schedule. And again, he's a guy who hits the portal hard for his quarterback. Last year he brought in Sam Hartman. This year he's got Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard's a winner. I don't think he's going to ever light the world on fire, but I think with the way Notre Dame's rushing attack looks, plus Riley Leonard not really making mistakes and really just having that veteran leadership on that team, Notre Dame's going to be a force to reckon with there. Ultimately, I do like Penn State to win that football game. And then the last matchup, Alabama versus Oregon, the Dan Lanning Bowl for my purposes here. I think Dan Lanning turned down that job. I think it was offered to him, and he turned it down. And then you got Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer, Dan Lanning going back at it like it's still the Pac-12. Ultimately, though, I do like Oregon to advance in this matchup. I know they're the lower seed here, in my opinion. I like Oregon to advance. I think it's a bad matchup for that Crimson Tide team. I think Oregon will be able to score against them, so that moves them on to the next round.
Contrell, hold on a second before you move on. Question about your Notre Dame pick. Do you think Riley Leonard is an upgrade from Sam Hartman?
No.
I disagree. For what they want to do, I think yes.
Okay. That's all I wanted to ask.
I say no, but I also think they're not going to ask him to do as much as they asked Sam to do. I think coming in, you knew Sam was that air raid guy. You saw what he did at Wake Forest. So I think they tried to implement some of that, to Notre Dame, and it really just didn't. It wasn't a match made in heaven there. I agree with you, Shally. I do think for what Notre Dame wants to do, Riley is like, that prototypical guy. They're not going to ask him to do too much. Just, be good in play action, give us a little bit with your feet, and really just rely on that rushing attack. So that's why I think Notre Dame has a bit more success this year. Second round matchups.
Being honest, I don't think Sam Hartman was that good this year. I think that's why they struggled. I think he had a couple of big games in the beginning of the year and put up big numbers, and I think every big game he played after that, he didn't play well. Kyle McCord outplayed him in the Ohio State game. He got outplayed in the Duke game. Honestly, they shouldn't have won the Duke game. He got outplayed by Riley Leonard in the Duke game.
Agreed. I can't disagree with you there.
All right, Control. Sorry to get off on a tangent. Continue.
Oh no, you're perfectly fine here. But next round matchups got Georgia versus Michigan. I think that would be a great football game. Ultimately, though, I do think Georgia is going to be a little bit too much for Michigan. I would have Georgia moving on to the Final Four there. Texas versus Colorado. I think this is the game where Colorado finally meets their match, and I think they get steamrolled. I got Texas huge in that game, 20 plus. But for what Deion wants to do, I think that would be a success for that Colorado program, just making it to the college football playoff. But I like Texas moving on to go to the Final Four. Penn State versus Florida State. Florida State's a school, again, you didn't see Florida State on Alex's list. I know a lot of people think they're going to have a down year. I think their schedule is light, and they brought in DJU from Oregon State. I think Mike Norvell can coach. I think he will be able to win games in that ACC. And again, with their schedule being the way it is, I really only think there's only one matchup on their entire schedule I think they could potentially lose, and that's the game against Clemson. But the luxury for them is that game is going to be home this year. They went to Clemson last year, so I do think that Florida State could potentially find a way to even have another undefeated season this upcoming year as well. But I do like Penn State to actually beat Florida State, so that would bump them over to the Final Four. So right now it's looking like Georgia, Texas, Penn State, then Ohio State versus Oregon. It is extremely hard to beat a team twice in the same season. I do think you will see Ohio State knock off that Oregon Ducks team. I think they're going to be able to put up points against them. While Oregon's offense is great, I think with all of what Ohio State is bringing back defensively, I think they're going to have an awesome shot to slow down that Oregon offense. And again, they're going to be seeing it for the second time of the year. So I would have Ohio State moving on. Looks like you'd have Georgia versus Texas in a semifinal, which would be awesome. And then you'd have Penn State versus Ohio State again. Georgia, I would take over Texas. I think, just with what Georgia has, it's going to be a little bit too much for Texas. I think they'll be able to slow down Quinn Ewers. And then with Ohio State versus Penn State, I would have Ohio State advancing to the championship. Ultimately, without just wasting too much time here, I would pick Georgia to beat Ohio State in the national championship next year. I think it'd be a great game. The reality of it is that as much as I love Ohio State's roster this year, if I'm being 100% transparent here, I trust Kirby Smart more than I trust Ryan Day. So I think Kirby Smart would win a national championship in a really tight game, and it'd be great for Ohio State. I think it's enough to keep Ryan Day's job, but I like Georgia to win. It'd be 3 out of 4 years. So that's my playoff.
Cottrell, so I mentioned that like NC State was my kind of like dark horse team to possibly crash the party. Do you have a team that you're watching out for next year that's not on this list that could potentially break into the party?
I don't want to say necessarily dark horse. I do think Arizona is the one team that could, or if Colorado doesn't win the Big 12, I 100% think it is going to be Arizona. I just don't think the Big 12 is strong enough to get 2 teams in. So that's ultimately why I went with Colorado here. In terms of just like schools completely out of the blue, I don't really have one. I mean, I think A&M could potentially make some noise with Elko being down there. But yeah, I don't really have any other schools that I'm like necessarily really like super high on.
All right. Let's see what Bill's magical list looks like.
All right. I will start with that does make sense. Yeah. I will start with the 8-9 matchup. Notre Dame versus the Oregon Ducks.
Though I think it's hilarious that I have Oregon 10, you have them 9. So like we see Oregon very similar. And then of course Alex got them at 2 being national champions. Not saying you might have Oregon being champs, but
I don't. But that being said, I think they're going to come in. I think they're going to have a very nice year. I think there's a couple games they're going to stumble here and there, but I think they're a very, very good team. I think they make the college football playoff. If I didn't think that, I wouldn't put them on here. I'm not doing it for lip service. I think Oregon's a very good football team. I think with what we know for sure is coming back at Ohio State and what I think / what I'm starting to hear trickle out at Michigan is coming back. I just think those 2 teams are better. It's not a slight against Oregon. I just think the core of what's coming back at Ohio State and Michigan are better. Got them against Notre Dame in the 8-9 matchup, and I will tell you point blank, I think Oregon wins that football game. I think it's a horrible matchup for Notre Dame. I think Oregon will be able to move the football. I don't think Riley Leonard will be able to do enough against that Oregon defense. And I think Dylan Gabriel and the boys move the ball, and I think they advance to play Georgia in the quarterfinals. Next, I have Texas, who is my runner-up in the SEC. That's why I have them 5 against Boise State, who looks like we all agree is going to make it, is going to probably be that 11-1, maybe 10-2 best group of 5 team. With Malachi going there and what they have coming back, it looks like we all have very high hopes for Boise State next year. So that will be my 5-12 matchup. I think with Quinn Ewers and the boys, though, I think it's just too much. I think this game is probably a little closer than experts think, maybe almost a replay of the Boise State-Oklahoma famous bowl game, but I don't think we quite get there. I think Texas has too much experience on that roster coming back. They're hungry after their semifinal knockout this year, so I will have Texas advancing in that game to play Arizona. Alabama, Utah, very interesting game. I think everybody's forgetting about Utah. I think they have a lot of talent coming back on both sides of the ball. Plus, Cam Rising has decided to stay. He's going to be healthy. We know how important quarterback play is in college football. So I think Alabama wins that game. I think it's a squeaker. I think Utah and Boise are probably everybody's if they don't have a horse in the race, they become everybody's kind of underdog favorite picks to root for. I think Utah gives them a hell of a football game. I do think Alabama advances, though. 7-10 matchup, Ohio State, Ole Miss. I think what Lane Kiffin did in the portal this year is nothing short of magnificent. That being said, I know what's at Ohio State. Adding Butkins and we'll see what Will Howard is and isn't. I think that's the biggest question mark. Emeka coming back is huge, obviously, plus what they have coming in another loaded wide receiver class. And they had a couple key guys this week as well on defense say they were coming back. Sawyer's coming back, I believe, Cottrell.
Everybody's coming back that was draft eligible, not named Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Hall.
Okay. So you got Sawyer back. You got TJ back. I know Denzel. I saw Denzel Burke as well. He's coming back. So that Ohio State team is going to be very good. I think they're better as a whole on both sides of the ball. So I think Ohio State advances out of that game to play Michigan again. I'll start up top. I have Georgia versus Oregon. I think it's a hell of a football game. I think Georgia's the best team in the country, just like Cottrell. I think they're the best team in football next year, coming in anyway. So I will take Georgia to squeak out one there. But I think Dan Lanning and the boys will give Georgia and Kirby everything they want and then some. I just like Georgia's experience coming back on defense. I think that team's going to be very hungry with missing out on the college football playoff completely this year. I like Georgia to squeak one out there and advance to the semis. Arizona versus Texas. I think this is where Arizona's Cinderella run kind of ends. I do like that team to win the Big 12 because I think they're the best balanced team in the Big 12. I think Colorado's offense is going to steal a lot of the early headlines like they did last year. Colorado's had a great year in the portal with getting offensive linemen and people to skill positions on offense. Their defense is still going to be atrocious. They're going to be terrible. I know they're going to get Travis Hunter back on one side as a cornerback, but the rest of that defense is horrible. They have not really addressed it in the portal. I like Arizona to come out of the Big 12. Assuming Jeb stays and keeps everybody there. But that being said, I think Texas is hungry to get back to the playoff, and make a deep run again. I think Quinn Ewers, Steve Sarkisian get it done. They advance to the quarter or the semifinals against Georgia. Clemson versus Alabama. I think Alabama has too much. I think Alabama, Kalen DeBoer, I think they maybe struggle a little early in the year, not quite sure, get their identity going until they figure out what it is. Kind of a lot like this year. I think Jalen Milroe and company rally the troops. I have Clemson winning the ACC just kind of as a default because I know DJU's going to Florida State, but I think Florida State is just losing so much. I like Mike Norvell a lot. I think he's a good coach. I've made that abundantly clear the last month. I think Clemson just has the most coming back. And DJU, he still just doesn't look like the kid we all thought he was going to be. I'll leave it at that. I don't think he's enough to get Florida State over the hump during the regular season against Clemson. He is.
Just say what it is. He's average.
He's above. He's above average, but he's not great. He's not the superstar prospect we all thought he was. I have Alabama getting past Clemson. to get to the semifinals. I have Michigan number 2. The Raiders' job looks like it's off the board already. The Bears' job didn't come open, and he is not even interviewed for the Chargers job. I don't think that's going to become a thing, and I think the other openings he doesn't have interest in. I think Harbaugh's coming back. I've said that from the get-go. Harbaugh comes back. I think JJ stays. JJ stays. Donovan's going to stay. I think Donovan is the most cemented in staying because he will be the number 1 next year and be able to show what he really is. I think with what they have coming back, if those 3 stay, they have 8 of their top 14 coming back on defense. That's the crazy part of that team. Everybody thinks that defense is graduating. It's not. They will have 8 of the 14 back, and out of those 8, 7 are starters. That defense is going to be loaded, and I think they pick up a cornerback somewhere. That's why I have Michigan number 2. Obviously, if that is all different, I think Ohio State's the best team in the Big Ten. So I have Michigan at 2. I'm not being a homer. I have them at number 2 under the impression that Jim Harbaugh, JJ, and Donovan are coming back. If any combination of that is different or they all leave, they are not my number 2 seed. Ohio State will be. So I'm going on record saying that right now.
For what it's worth, Bill, 3 hours ago, Rap put out a report. The Chargers and Jim Harbaugh are meeting this week.
Okay. I mean, I know they're bringing other guys in too. Again, I'm not saying he doesn't take the Chargers job. I'm saying that is the only job left that I think he would take. And if he doesn't take that, I think he's 1,000,000% staying at Michigan. He'll sign the extension, and then I don't think we're talking about this anymore. But again, I'm under the guys. That's what it is. That's why I have them at number 2. They'll play Ohio State. I think this gets interesting because, I mean, this is a theory the 3rd time they could possibly play during the year. And I think that's kind of crazy. I didn't realize that was going to be the matchup when I originally did this. I think it's a barn burner. I'm not going to pick Ohio State. So
you better not.
So, I'm going to pick Michigan. But I wouldn't be surprised either way that game goes. I think seeing a team for the 3rd time in the matter of, at that point, they're going to play each other last. They would play each other the following week.
Yeah,
3 times in 5 weeks. There's probably going to be a bunch of fights. I mean, that could be the best it could be the best Michigan-Ohio State game ever. That being said, I'll have Michigan advance to play Alabama again in the semifinals. I will have Georgia beating Texas. I think they're the deeper team. I think Texas I think with what they lost on the outside this year, I think that kind of plays in the factor of Georgia's defense. Georgia's hungry. I know they both are going to be licking their chops for a chance to get to that national championship game. I think Georgia's just a little bit deeper, and they both have good quarterbacks coming back. I'll take Georgia's defense over Texas's defense in that one. So give me Georgia to advance to the college football championship game. And in the second game, Alabama versus Michigan, I think we get a replay of what happened this year. I would like Michigan to advance again. I don't think Alabama will be as good next year as they are this year. I know Milroe is going to probably take a step, but I think with that Michigan defense again, I think it's too much for him to overcome. And Michigan will do what they do on offense. So I will have Michigan versus Georgia in the championship game. This is the rematch that a lot of Michigan fans have been clamoring for since the first year that we made the college football playoff and got our asses kicked by Georgia. But that being said, unfortunately, I think it ends the same way the first one did. I think Georgia is your national champion next year. I think Michigan makes it a very close game. I think they give them hell, and it's not a blowout by any means. I think Georgia makes a play late to get it done. So I'll have Georgia beating Michigan in the final.
So I got Georgia, Bill, you got Georgia, and then Alex has Oregon.
Well, of course.
So yeah. two realistic picks and a homer pick. Got it.
Oh my goodness.
I can't wait until we see Dylan Gabriel in the Big Ten going up against Big Ten defenses. That'll tell me everything I need to see. Like that first matchup, I don't even know who they're like the first one in the Big Ten is going to be, like the first good team in the Big Ten. But
the first good. So Oregon's toughest 3 games next year is Boise State start off the season, Ohio State middle of the year, then Michigan towards the end in November. So I think Ohio State's honestly the first big test, and then I know you guys think going to Wisconsin,
man,
is also
going
a tough
to
test.
Wisconsin is going to be. I'm telling you,
it's one of the toughest places to play, bro. I'm telling you,
it is not the walk in the park that you're expecting it to be.
Many very, very good teams have gone up there and lose.
Y'all forgot how hard it is to come to Eugene, the Autzen Stadium, which Control has to do.
I do not. So
I'm not
this year. Not this year.
I'm not saying that that's an easy task by any means. Like, I won't disrespect Autzen, but I'm just saying going to Camp Randall in late November when it's cold and the stadium is still rocking, like, if you're not ready for that, it's way different than any atmosphere over in the Pac-12 outside of Oregon.
That is true. Okay. That's an accurate statement. Got to jump around. Okay. Don't be losing when jump around comes on.
All right. Well,
so now that's where we all sit. Like I said, mine could change very drastically, very quickly. The other two, I think. Yeah. Cottrell and Alex's are probably more, steady and less reliant upon what possibly could happen the next week to 10 days. So
mine is actually based on, I think JJ's got nothing left to prove in college. I don't think he'll improve his draft stock next year. So I think he's going no matter what. I do think I think he's 50-50 with the Chargers job. If they offer it to him, I think he takes it. If they don't, then I think he's back.
Yeah, I think if Jim stays, I think Jim asked JJ to stay, and I think JJ stays. I do think he can improve his draft stock, to be honest. But
they don't throw the ball enough. Like, I think you've seen what you're going to see out of JJ.
Looks like
it's going to have to. Whoa, calm down. That's just disrespectful. That's just. That'll get you kicked off this show.
Look at the stats comparatively, and tell me I'm wrong.
I will tell you wrong. Just use your eyeballs and watch the football game and tell me which one's a better quarterback.
He's a fringe first rounder, most likely a second round guy.
That's embedded. Quit football already.
He has personal issues, man. Don't do that.
We don't know what they are.
We all know.
Justin, you able to do this show next year? Because there's going to be an opening.
I need a new West Coast correspondent.
I need a new West Coast guy. Doesn't look like this guy's contract's going to be renewed next year.
At least Bill's impartial, right?
Yeah, I'm impartial. I'm telling
so you bring up JJ.
Yeah. Listen, I didn't tell you to say like JJ's better than Caleb Williams. I am very, very, and Cottrell will tell you this. I am very honest and unbiased in what JJ is. Don't tell me he's Stetson Bennett, bro. That is the most ridiculous thing. That might be the worst take on this show so far.
That's impossible. I've said a lot of shitty takes.
All right. We're going to finish up this show with some awards. Best of this year. I don't know how many do we have?
6.
Like six.
Did we cut Team of the Year out? You already know who that is. That's Michigan. So I don't think these guys are going to give me
They were in a category by themselves. Like, who do you? It'd be different if Liberty would have ran the table and been 13-0, and then you had like some other.
In the bowl game, Kalen, that would have been a different story. But
but you only got one undefeated team in the entire country, so you get. I'm not saying it by default, but you get it by default. You're the only undefeated team; it's yours.
Congratulations, Bill.
You ran unopposed. Okay.
I wanted one more banner and one more trophy to put in the case, but it's all right. I understand. So where are we starting? What is the first award? Transfer of the Year. All right. This is a 2-horse race, in my opinion.
Facts.
I kind of gave away who I'm not picking about 7 minutes ago. Shador Sanders, Colorado, came over from Jackson State with his daddy Dion. Sam Hartman transferred from Wake Forest into Notre Dame, and then Keon Coleman transferred into Florida State. Where was he from? Why do I not know this?
Michigan State.
Yeah. Duh. That's why Stuarts suck. We'll snake these. We'll do this like we do on Wire. So like this one, we'll just go how we are on the screen. Alex, you go first on this one. I'll go second, Cottrell, and then we'll reverse it for next one. And if there's a tie, then we'll leave it to who's ever in the group chat with Justin. It looks like it's just him though.
No worries. Yeah, say when we look at Keon Coleman, at the beginning of the year, he had a huge impact on Florida State's early success. In the last 5 or 6 games, though, he was constantly double teamed, especially after Jordan Travis went down. His production kind of also fell off, so that 658 yards isn't really vindictive of the impact he had on Florida State University. Sam Hartman ultimately came in to lead Notre Dame to the college football playoff. That did not happen. And Shedeur Sanders, he's been all over ESPN, all over our timelines, throwing up the watch. I think as far as impact and, he was a part of the Heisman Trophy talk for a lot of this season. So for me, I got to go with Shedeur Sanders. I did have Travis Hunter also kind of in this category, debating who to throw in there, but Shedeur Sanders is the correct pick. 3,200 yards, 27 touchdowns. I'm excited to see what he's able to do. So for me, transfer of the year goes to Shedeur Sanders.
I'm going to take the shock or the surprise factor of this. I think the answer is obviously Shedeur Sanders. I think if Keon Coleman could have, he missed a game or two himself. I think if he was healthy all year, and Jordan Travis stayed healthy all year, I think he had the potential to win this award. Sam Hartman, I think he had a good year. I don't think he showed up when they really needed him, and again, I don't think he had the year that some Fighting Irish fans would lead you to believe that he had. I just don't see it. Shedeur Sanders is kind of single-handedly the reason they won their first 4 games and had any kind of success that they did this year. Kid had a hell of a game. Like Alex said, he was in the Heisman conversation through about week 6 before they really went into nosedive mode. But the kid had a hell of a year. To go from Jack State to Colorado and put that team on his back, I think he's the runaway winner with this. Shedeur Sanders for me.
And I'm going to go clean sweep here. I got Shedeur Sanders as well. I mean, what you guys have said, really sums up everything. And I think, obviously the media getting behind Shedeur bumped up some of that status for him as well. But I mean, if it weren't for Shedeur, I know they only won 4 games last year. If it weren't for Shedeur, they probably wouldn't have won the 4 that they did. And then not even just that, thinking about the games they didn't win, you look at Arizona was tight. They're a missed field goal away from taking that game to overtime. Against UCLA, they're the 1 possession loss there. Against Oregon State, 1 possession loss there. So Shedeur kept them in a lot of these games. And that back half of the year, he was playing hurt. So impact, what he did on the field, I think Shedeur has to be the guy there. And I think makes sense that he's a clean sweep here.
All right, sure. Take some transfer of the year. Best single game performance of the year. Jaden Daniels versus Florida scored 19 touchdowns. Ray Davis had a hell of a game at the beginning of the year when we kind of thought Kentucky might be something we all missed. 26 carries, almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Then Ollie Gordon against West Virginia. Just a different kind of performance. This one is a little bit tougher. I know where I'm going, but I'm going to let Cottrell go first. So
this one is easy for me. I'm going with the guy that had not only the most touchdowns, the most total yards. I know he played quarterback, but Jaden Daniels versus Florida was absolutely incredible. 234 yards rushing. That's absolutely insane. The other 2 performances, I don't want to slight those by any means, but when you have over 600 total yards of production by yourself with 5 touchdowns, it's hard not to give you the single game performance. I think this game was huge in Jaden Daniels ultimately going on to win the Heisman Trophy. So I got to give the Jaden Daniels with this one.
I am going to agree with you. I think this is closer to what I think for me, just because if you are a running back, you only have the chance to carry the ball. I mean, unless you catch the ball out of the backfield, but most college teams don't do that. So his really only opportunity is to run the ball. 29 carries for 282. That's almost it's almost 10 yards a carry, 4 touchdowns against West Virginia. That is about as good as you can do as a running back. So I mean, I feel like comparatively speaking, he pretty much hit the ceiling for what a running back's performance could be. That being said, Jaden Daniels, almost 600 yards of offense, 5 total touchdowns against Florida. It is, Cottrell kind of said this, kind of the signature moment that really put him on the Heisman map and kind of was like, yeah, this is probably the guy everybody's chasing. To do all that in one game is nuts, man. I mean, you're averaging a bunch of yards per completion, over almost 20 yards of carry rushing. That's crazy for a quarterback. So for me, it's I agree with Cottrell. It's Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching the Kentucky versus Florida game, and I just thought, dang, don't even call anything besides handoffs to Ray Davis. He was absolutely dominant against Florida. Ultimately, he's the reason they won that game. Ollie Gordon, he was really the focal point of their offense the entire season and put up, video game numbers multiple times. But there was a time this year when we were talking about Jaden Daniels not even being close to Heisman considerations due to the lack of success with LSU. And I think it was this game that ultimately put him back on the map and solidified him as a front runner. So I think the Jaden Daniels wins this by a landslide. I think for me the second choice would have been Ray Davis, the way that he was able to carry Kentucky on his back against Florida in that game. But for me it's Jaden Daniels. I mean, almost 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. I mean, absolute complete efficiency, 17 for 26 through the air. And the one thing I noticed in this slide here is Florida lets up a lot of big performances. But for me, it is Jaden Daniels. I think this is the ultimate performance that put him in the forefront of people's minds for the Heisman Trophy. So I think Jaden Daniels takes the sweep.
All right. Coach of the year. I didn't know we were doing this one. All right. Kalen DeBoer, 13-0. Obviously took upstart Washington all the way to the national championship game. You got Nick Saban, got his team to the semifinals, won the SEC again this year. Beat a really good Georgia team, lost in the Rose Bowl. Steve Sarkisian, 12-1, Big 12 champs, another college football playoff coach, and then Jim Harbaugh, 13-0, national champion coach. I feel like we're not going to agree on this, so this one will be interesting. So, Alex, you're up first on this one.
Yeah, no problem. So obviously the clear choice I feel like for people who weren't able to watch the full college football season would be Jim Harbaugh, national championship coach, undefeated season. You can't really argue with that. For me, I can't give it to Jim this year, really, because he only coached half the season. The rest of his staff really kind of took him through a part of the schedule that he wasn't able to coach with. So I can't really put him. Maybe he gets half the award. All right, but I only put Jim in there really because his team won the Natty. But him only coaching half the season really kind of takes him out for me. And for me, the winner is honestly Nick Saban. I mean, there was a time in this year after they lost to Texas where we were like, Alabama's done. Alabama's losing 2-3 games this year. They are not making the college football playoff. And he took an Alabama team that we literally chose against every single week. I believe all three of us said begging to be beaten at one point about Alabama. I think Nick Saban, being able to come back, beat Georgia, take the SEC championship game, and make it to the college football playoff before he ultimately retires. I think that Nick Saban is the coach of the year, what he was able to do with Jalen Milroe. Really, if you look at their play calling at the first 3 games of the season, once they really handed Milroe the starting job and their play calling tendencies kind of changed up, he really adjusted his coaching style to make this team successful. So I think Nick Saban has got to be my coach of the year for what he was able to accomplish with a roster that we thought may not get to the point that he did this season.
So that is not where I thought you were going to go, which makes this kind of interesting. I was actually kind of leaning Saban here. I'm not going to give it to Harbaugh because, the fact of the matter is he missed 6 games. If anything, I would have nominated Sherrone Moore for steadying the ship and not blowing it while he was gone. I'll make this interesting so it goes to Cottrell, so we actually have some mystery here. I'll go with Kalen DeBoer. I was going to go with Saban, but I'm going to go with Kalen DeBoer. Won the Pac-12, beat a very good Oregon team twice, got all the way to the championship game. I think that has to matter. He did get further than Saban did, and he went undefeated up until that point. So he's obviously a very good coach. Just took over the Alabama job. I think he did one of the better coaching jobs out of the 4 guys here. So I will go with Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, so it's funny that I was actually thinking that I thought Jim Harbaugh was going to be the runaway winner here completely. Really? I knew he didn't coach the last 3 games. I don't know why, but it completely slipped my mind that he got self-imposed suspended for the first 3 games of the year as well. So I mean, in reality, he's like 9-0 for the year total. Obviously, Michigan won that national championship, but yeah, I'm going to also disqualify Jim Harbaugh there as well. And I think from there, I think the answer is easy. Kalen DeBoer's got to be my coach of the year here. I say it's easy because you talk about Bama begging to be beat. Well, I said the same thing. We all said the same thing about Washington for 3 weeks in a row. You know, they played that Stanford team, and it was like, damn, they should have lost that game. Then they play, Arizona and Oregon State, and it's like, damn, these are games that we felt like they were going to ultimately lose, and they didn't. Nick Saban obviously lost the 1 game. You look at the other game against USF and even Auburn. USF more so. I mean, I think that's a good gutted out win. Auburn had no business losing that football game, and I know they did. But for me, Kalen DeBoer, I think what he did with what he had, a lot of talent on that Washington team. I don't think anyone still expect them to go to the national championship or even go to the college football playoff this year. So I got to give it to Kalen DeBoer making it happen with what he had.
For the record, Washington was preseason number 5. So, I mean, they did expect them to have a lot of success this year. Just saying.
Preseason number 5 does not get you to the college football playoff.
Facts. I'm just saying you said no one expected them to be there. Clearly, the polls did expect them to be damn near close. So I can't give it to DeBoer.
That's not – where did they have Bama? They probably had Bama at 2.
True.
I hate preseason rankings.
But I had to put Harbaugh on here just to say that he didn't coach half the season. I had to throw some shade at Bill.
You throw all the shade you want. He's the guy who got the last laugh. All right, offensive player of the year.
Non-quarterback.
This is loaded, as you can see. You got Malik Neighbors from LSU, almost 1,600 yards receiving, 14 touchdowns. Ollie Gordon, we talked about earlier, Oklahoma State running back, 1,700 yards rushing, 21 touchdowns. Rome Odunze, another, almost 1,700 yards receiving, 13 touchdowns. And then Blake Corum, 1,300 yards rushing, 27 touchdowns. I believe, Cottrell, you're up first on this one.
For me, I'm going to go with Ollie Gordon. I think impact matters, and I know Oklahoma State didn't have necessarily a great season, but getting them to the Big 12 championship game, I think that is something, at least for that program. And, we've seen some of the performances that he's had this season. So I'm going to go with Ollie Gordon because of impact and what he meant to team success. Now, obviously, Blake and Rome are huge to their team success as well. But I think, again, based on what Ollie was asked to do with his program, I'm going to go with Ollie Gordon as my offensive player of the year.
Yeah, this Ollie gets points for doing the most with less here because obviously LSU had a very good offense. And then obviously Rome and Blake also, were kind of the focal points of 2 very good offenses. Blake has the most touchdowns by far. But again, it's a very run-heavy scheme. I am going to go.
I thought I made this a pretty good list to choose from.
Yeah, this one's. I mean, you could legit make cases for all 4 of these guys.
And yeah, I mean, this Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't get on here just strictly for production reasons, but that's another player that could have easily been on this list too. So there's a lot of good players this year.
I don't actually, Justin. And if I'm being 100% honest, if I rank these 1 through 4, Blake's probably 4.
I agree with that, and I know who my number 3 would be as well.
And I think the world of Blake. It's just I know Donovan Edwards could have done the same thing behind him. And he's. I mean, it's hard for me just really hard for me not to pick Ollie, and I think that's where I'm going. I'm going Ollie Gordon.
All right, well, my pick won't matter because Ollie Gordon has already won this, but I want to just bring a little bit of attention to this. There was a 3-game stretch where Ollie Gordon accounted for almost 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. There was Kansas, West Virginia, and Cincinnati. There was a stretch there where he averaged 230 rushing yards. And the game against Kansas, he had 116 receiving yards. The dude is truly dual threat. This is only his rushing yards, by the way, with the 1,732 yards. If you include his receiving yards as well, he's almost at 2,000 yards for the season if he's not eclipsed that amount. Ollie Gordon is the only reason why Oklahoma State made it to the Big 12 championship. Malik Neighbors, he had a Heisman Trophy winner throwing to him. He had a fantastic season. Rome Odunze, he had a Heisman Trophy finalist, and Michael Penix throwing to him. He had a great season. Blake Corum obviously breaking Michigan's fantastic rushing record and leading college football this season in touchdowns. But you guys are right. I got to give it to Ollie Gordon. 1,732 rushing yards, by far the best running back in the country, and truly carried Oklahoma State on his back. We got to give it to Ollie Gordon. Anyone else would be an insult.
Defensive Player of the Year. Laiatu Latu from UCLA, 13 sacks, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. Peyton Wilson, 138 total tackles, 3 interceptions. And Xavier Watts, 52 total tackles and 7 interceptions, which is nuts.
Leading the country.
And he's coming back next year, which is exciting. See what he can do another year.
Yeah. Alex, I think you're first on this one.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this, there's a lot of defining factors. But one thing that really jumps off for me is, Laiatu Latu, and it was 13 sacks, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. That UCLA defense was honestly one of the prides of the Pac-12. Was able to do a lot of good things. Xavier Watts, he was constantly every single week lining up against teams, top wide receiver threats. He had a great game, only allowing a couple big catches to Marvin Harrison Jr. We had to guard him as well. For me, I gotta go with the guy that's going to make the biggest impact on the next level and had the biggest impact on his team, and that's Laiatu Latu. The 13 sacks, that is incredible. He already improved, and that's an improvement from last year with his 10.5 sacks to 13 this year, 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions. Not even to mention the amount of pressure that he applied to the backfield of all the Pac-12 quarterbacks this year. I do got to give this one to UCLA's Laiatu Latu and wish him all the luck in the NFL this upcoming season, but he's by far my Defensive Player of the Year. Being able to watch him every week, obviously as a man who watches a lot of Pac-12 football, I got to see him more than you guys probably did. He's all over the field. He reminds me of Fred Warner as far as how he's able to cover sideline to sideline. So for me, Laiatu Latu is going to be the Defensive Player of the Year in this category.
So this is interesting because this kind of boils down to what you value here. What you think is more valuable, the valuable attribute of a defensive player. You got Laiatu Latu, who is, the edge rusher type guy, the disruptor, 13 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions. You got Peyton Wilson, who is the kind of do everything linebacker, anything that comes through the line, the guy tackles them. I mean, 138 tackles is nuts, especially on a college team where they play less games. There's the elite NFL tacklers, middle linebackers, some of them don't get to 130 a year. So doing 10 or 11, 12 games is nuts. And then you got Xavier Watts, who is the back end guy. Do you value the corners, the corners and the back end guys that break up pass plays, have interceptions, stuff like that. That's tough.
For the record, Peyton Willis also had 6 sacks and a defensive touchdown. Peyton Wilson also had 6 sacks and a defensive touchdown this season as well. That's not on there.
Well, you should have put it on there, Griff.
I know.
That being said, I'm going to go with Xavier Watts here. I know Latu would be a little bit more valued in the NFL because we just know defensive ends are. 7 interceptions in college is just nuts, though. Like, that's unheard of. For that alone, I'm going with Xavier Watts.
Alex, I'm on board with you. I got Laiatu Latu. I did see a lot of UCLA football this year, and I was able to see the impact that he had on his team. I mean, he was a guy who, no matter the situation that you were in, they were relying on him to make a big play. And so I think with Laiatu Latu, impact alone, I think he was the biggest impact guy. And I think when they did the awards show, Peyton Wilson actually won this award, and I felt like Laiatu Latu got snubbed for it. So giving him his love on this show definitely makes me happy that he's going home with an award. He doesn't even know about it, but he's got it. So I like Laiatu Latu to win the award.
Boom, let's go. Not on the losing end this time.
Game of the year. All right, Ohio State versus Notre Dame was beginning of the year. 17-14. That game really came down to the last two drives. Oregon versus Washington, 36-33. That was the first time they played this year. I think we all watched that game very early and thought that was going to be a leading contender to get here. And then obviously Alabama versus Michigan, 27-20, final in overtime in the Rose Bowl. I don't know who's going first on this one.
I think it'll be me.
Why don't you go first, Bill?
First on the last one.
Why doesn't Bill go first on this one?
Because I'm in the middle. I'm in
the middle.
I'm the meat that holds the sandwich together. Let's go.
You're the Eiffel Tower.
Bill, I hate to do this because we're gonna know who wins after I pick this game. I got to go Oregon versus Washington. Unfortunately, I just feel like Oregon is like the Oregon-Washington game. Originally, I didn't feel like it was going to make it here. Washington had kind of been dominating that game, and then Oregon had woke up, towards the end of the first half, and then, we saw how the second half played out. It ended up coming down all the way to Oregon's kicker missing the field goal. And while I do take a lot of pride in the way that the Ohio State Notre Dame ended, walk-off play, in a sense, touchdown basically just ended the game right there with 1 second left on the clock. There was a lot of just in the middle of that game. Teams weren't scoring, weren't moving the ball. So I'll go with Oregon versus Washington for my game of the year.
All right, this is a two-horse race for me. I'm going to eliminate Ohio State Notre Dame just kind of for the same reason Cottrell did. I think the ending was great, but that's what happens when you have two really good teams play at the beginning of the year. They both really kind of weren't sure what they were yet, and that's kind of what you get. Oregon versus Washington was great. Like I said, we had high accolades for the game when it happened. You can call me Homer if you want. I mean, I'm going Alabama, Michigan here. When you factor everything in, you're comparing a national semifinal versus a regular season game. Two blue bloods. It went to overtime, and it happened at the Rose Bowl. Those things all matter. I think Oregon versus Washington was great. Give me a national semifinal that's in overtime in the Rose Bowl. I don't care who the two teams are. That's tough to beat. Then you factor in that it's Alabama and Michigan. I think that was the most nail-biting, great game, great theater to watch at the end of the year. So I'm going Alabama, Michigan.
So for me, and looking at these games, the Ohio State Notre Dame game was obviously a fantastic game at the beginning of the year. Really kind of launched us into the meat of the season. Obviously, the first couple of weeks there's a lot of mismatches. The Ohio State Notre Dame really kind of cemented the start of the college football season. And I thought that was a fantastic game. I thought Notre Dame was going to win that game. Obviously, Kyle McCord was able to make that last final drive. Should have been an interception by Notre Dame, but I'm going to leave that there. And then, of course, like Bill said, the Alabama-Michigan, that is a college football playoff game that is exactly what you want it to be, 27-20 overtime. For me, though, I got to go over Washington.
I know.
He's building us up. He's building us up to
Alabama, Michigan was a great game. However, it was a very sloppy game, in my opinion. Obviously, a bigger stage, a lot of nerves. That's going to happen. But for me, Oregon, Washington has got to be the winner of the best game of the year. The turn of the tides, the lead changes. Washington was up by 10 at one point. Oregon going for it on fourth downs. Then Camden Lewis missing the time-expiring, game-tying field goal. I mean, this game was everything that we thought it was going to be. It actually lived up to the hype. They scored 69 points. Can't argue with that. And just unlike Alabama, unlike Ohio State, Camden Lewis missed that field goal. Guess what we didn't do? We didn't send him death threats and kick him out of the school. So there's that positivity at the University of Oregon. But Oregon versus Washington's got to win game of the year. Like I said, that's not a homer pick. That's just I watched all 3 of these games. Ohio State, Notre Dame, defensive battle. Alabama, Michigan, college football playoff, exactly what you expect. But the Oregon-Washington game really lived up to the hype. So I got to go Oregon-Washington.
Not saying that death threats were warranted, because I never wish death threats on any kid. But the reason why you guys didn't get as passionate is because you guys aren't used to winning anything at Oregon.
God damn, that's a direct shot. It's as blunt as it gets.
I will never ever be behind
Justin's
death
right.
threat.
We are too high in Oregon to care.
You can't say that the Rose Bowl game was sloppy and then not say the same thing about Washington, Oregon. There was awful coaching. There was bad decisions. There was missed kicks. See.
But here's the thing, though. They weren't bad decisions, because we all 3 of us jumped on the show that next week and said that we would do the exact same thing in his situation, going for it on 4th down, staying aggressive. It's different between fumbled punts. It's debatable.
Listen, man, that's what happens. You play on the biggest stage, man. You get nervous when things matter. It's not week 4. It's not week 4, in Washington Stadium. It's the national semifinal at the damn Rose Bowl for a chance to go to the championship. It happens. I don't know who
exactly. They're right. Washington, Oregon has to be game of the year, and that's why we 2-1. We have one more category. Was that it?
That was it.
That's it. Shoot. We are finally done our marathon show. We almost went 3 hours. I knew that was going to happen today, though. We just had too much to get through. Justin, everybody else that's in there, I saw other people in and out.
Appreciate you.
Nef TV. Dempsey was in there for a while, in and out. I know other people were as well. So, we thank you as always. Some breaking news here. QB Des Ricks, a 5-star kid last year. Slotted like he was probably going to start this year, played a little bit, got hurt. He has just entered the transfer portal from Alabama. So that is a prized going to be a prized get for somebody to get him out of the portal.
I almost wonder, is that opening up a spot for Jabbar Muhammad?
Maybe. You'd have to think that. I don't know. You kind of, the writing's kind of on the wall with there, but I don't know. Because I feel like even with Muhammad, I guess we'll see what Damani does too. There's a lot of chatter that he's going to go back in the portal, because and if that happens, then I think it's kind of clear cut where Muhammad's going, because that would be 2 5-star kids knowing that they're not going to start next year. So that being said, just to update everybody, we are going to have a show next week. And that's probably going to be our last one until we go on a little bit of a hiatus. We'll do some more portal stuff, and just go over some general stuff. It obviously won't be a 3-hour show next week. Probably a little bit shorter, actually. We will have one more, kind of just, tie up all the loose ends for the year. And we'll be off for a couple months. And then once we get closer to draft time, I love that time of year. I know Cottrell does. Cottrell is. I will say this: I am very good at it. I'm not patting my own back. Cottrell is on a different level of tracking, recruiting, and draft prospects and charting them and doing everything else. So once we get back, we will come back with some shows and kind of go over before we get into previews, but go into the best 5 prospects at like all the different positions. And Cottrell will kind of lead the charge with that a little bit. I got to give the kid, his flowers on that. So, so next week will be it for a little bit. Like I said, we'll go on a hiatus. We're not done though. It's just kind of a dead period for, college football. And if anything crazy happens, we can always jump on a random Saturday and put a show together quickly for you guys. So just want to give everybody a heads up. So I hope everyone that's been on the first ride here for the first season with us, it's here next week, next Saturday, and then we'll be off for a little bit, and
season finale.
Season finale. What's the cliffhanger going to be?
Good news is, the cliffhanger is if you come back for season 2, because after today, I don't know. I don't know if that's set in stone. I'm gonna get Justin's phone number. We're gonna have to have some conversations.
I'm a little worried because Justin does teach high school and Justin teaches sports broadcasting. So actually, if
you might as well just fire yourself, Alex.
Put in your 2 weeks.
Alex. I was just say, Alex, we can do the nice professional thing and just say it's a mutual parting of ways, so it doesn't look like you got fired.
Can I stay on in an advisory role?
Yeah, you can be the graphics guy. We'll bring a lot.
The graphics guy. Give you your credit, but work behind the scenes.
Yeah, listen, everybody needs
got a face for radio, apparently.
So, but that is we will be back, and at some point, I'll be honest. Some point we will have Justin on next year. At some point, I think he's deserved it. At this point, we'll bring him on for a little guest
Oregon's
show
bye week. Maybe Oregon's bye week because I don't want to be bombarded with this Oregon Ducks mess. So maybe we can slot that in.
Trust me, I have a lot of ideas for next year that involve Justin, and I'll be contacting him about that later. So you guys will be in for some treats next year if everything goes to plan. Little bit of a sneak peek.
Little cliffhanger. You should have saved that for next week.
Oh, there will be more. There's always more.
Good news is we've been renewed for season 2. We will be back, and like I said, we'll be here next Saturday. So we're not done yet. We got a couple more hours in us, and then we will say goodbye for a little bit. And like I said, with the way this is set up, if anything crazy happens, we have the ability to jump on and do a little 30-minute thing if we have to. And then if not, like I said, we'll be back towards draft time, and we'll be breaking everything down of where we think guys are projected and all that good stuff. And like I said, Cottrell always brings the heat come draft time. So we will have some fun. And then obviously, we'll do some fun stuff next year with brackets and stuff like that. It was the first year, and it came together quickly. So, I think we did a hell of a job. And I love where the show's at. And like I said, we already have big ideas for next year and where it's going to go and how we can get improved. So we appreciate everybody's support. That's it for this week. We've talked enough today. My throat hurts.
Yes, sir.
And we will see everybody here next weekend as always.
Absolutely. Everybody stay safe with the weather approaching. And, I know,
yes,
Buffalo, we're a college football show, but NFL, you got some games coming. Buffalo already moved their game back to 4:30 for tomorrow. So,
no, Monday.
Oh, they're on Monday now?
They're on Monday. They postponed it to 4:30 Monday.
Jeez. Go get
nuts. Absolutely nuts.
So, 2 games today, 2 tomorrow, 2 Monday now. So, still good, for all the NFL guys. It's still fun. So, enjoy it. And we will be next week. So, enjoy the weather. Stay safe, everybody. See you next weekend.
Take care.